Tonight, we will travel quietly through more than 3,000 years of ancient Egyptian history, uncovering the strange, beautiful, and surprisingly human stories left behind. If peaceful journeys into the past help you drift away, consider subscribing to Quiet Science. Now, let's leave the noise of the present behind and drift quietly into the mysteries of ancient Egypt. It is easy to imagine ancient Egypt as a single distant moment, a world of pyramids, pharaohs, and golden masks, all existing together beneath the same desert sun. But ancient Egypt lasted for so long that even the ancient Egyptians sometimes stood among ruins they could no longer fully understand. More than 3,000 years of recorded history passed between Egypt's earliest kings and its final pharaohs. Entire kingdoms rose, fractured, disappeared, and were rebuilt. Languages slowly changed. Gods gained and lost importance. Capitals moved. Royal families vanished. Monuments were swallowed by sand, uncovered, repaired, and forgotten again. During the reign of Ramesses, a prince named Khemweset became fascinated by the monuments of Egypt's distant past. He was not exploring the pyramids as we do today. He was exploring them more than 3,000 years ago. And even then, some of those pyramids were already over 1,000 years old. Khemweset studied faded inscriptions, identified forgotten kings, cleared sand from ancient structures, and placed new inscriptions beside them. He wanted future generations to know who had built these monuments and that he had helped preserve them. For this reason, he is sometimes described as the world's first Egyptologist. Imagine him walking through Saqqara beneath the evening sky. Around him stood tombs belonging to people who had died before his own civilization had reached many of its greatest heights. Their names were disappearing. Their temples were crumbling. The faces carved into their statues had been softened by centuries of blowing sand. To Khemweset, these people were not simply ancestors. They were ancient. The distance between Khemweset and the builders of some Old Kingdom monuments was roughly comparable to the distance between Khemweset and Cleopatra, who would not be born for more than 1,000 years. And Cleopatra herself lived closer to our own age than she did to the construction of the Great Pyramid. This is perhaps the first great mystery of Egypt. Not a secret room or a missing treasure, but the almost impossible depth of its history. The civilization was so old that it contained its own antiquity. It had its own ruins, its own forgotten kings, its own archaeologists, and beneath some of those ancient monuments, even now there are spaces no living person has ever entered. For thousands of years, people have searched the Great Pyramid for something hidden. Treasure hunters carved passages through its stone. Explorers crawled through narrow shafts. Archaeologists mapped every corridor they could reach, hoping the monument might eventually surrender the last of its secrets. Yet the Great Pyramid is not an empty shell. It contains passageways, chambers, shafts, sealed spaces, and millions of blocks of stone arranged with a precision that still feels almost unreal. And somewhere above the Grand Gallery, there appears to be an enormous space that no human being in the modern age has entered. Its existence was revealed not by drilling through the pyramid, but by watching invisible particles fall from the sky. Cosmic rays constantly strike Earth's atmosphere, producing particles known as muons. These particles pass through matter more easily than X-rays, although thick stone gradually absorbs them. Scientists placed detectors inside and around the Great Pyramid and allowed the monument to become something like an enormous photographic plate. Where the pyramid was solid, fewer particles passed through. Where empty space existed, more arrived. The resulting images revealed a large void above the Grand Gallery, at least 30 meters in length. 3 different detection systems confirmed it. Something is there, but no known entrance leads into it. It may be a single chamber. It may be several connected spaces. It may have served a structural purpose, relieving pressure from the stone below. It may be part of a construction method that has not yet been understood. Or it may be something else entirely. There is currently no evidence that it contains treasure, inscriptions, a burial, or even a floor on which a person could stand. Its mystery comes from how little can honestly be said about it. We know where it is. We know roughly how large it is. And we know almost nothing about why it exists. For now, the space remains suspended inside the pyramid, surrounded on every side by ancient stone. No doorway has been opened. No torch has illuminated its walls. No camera has looked across its interior. It has remained in darkness since the Great Pyramid was built, while kingdoms rose around it, while the Egyptian language changed, while the outer casing stones disappeared, and while nearly every generation invented its own explanation for how the pyramid came to exist. There may be nothing inside the void at all, but emptiness can be mysterious, especially when that emptiness has been sealed above one of the most extraordinary passageways ever constructed. The Great Pyramid may still contain places that have never been seen. Yet one of the closest voices we possess from the time of its construction was discovered far away from Giza, beside the Red Sea. His name was Mera. He was not a pharaoh, a high priest, or a legendary architect. He was an inspector responsible for a crew of workers during the reign of King Khufu, the ruler for whom the Great Pyramid was built. For more than 4,000 years, Mera's records remained hidden near an ancient harbor called Wadi el-Jarf. The harbor stood beside the Red Sea, far from the pyramid itself. It had once been used by Egyptian expeditions traveling toward the Sinai Peninsula, where copper and turquoise could be obtained. When its storage galleries were sealed, papyrus documents were left behind. Among them were Mera's logbooks. They are part of the oldest papyrus archive yet discovered in Egypt. The pages do not reveal a lost machine. They do not explain every stage of pyramid construction. They contain no forbidden knowledge and no message intended for the distant future. They record work. Day after day, Mera noted the movements of his crew. They traveled between limestone quarries at Tura and the construction site at Giza. Fine white limestone was loaded onto boats, moved through waterways, and delivered to the place the Egyptians called Akhet Khufu, the horizon of Khufu. This stone was likely intended for the pyramid's smooth outer casing. Today, the Great Pyramid appears rough and stepped, but when it was completed, much of its exterior was covered in carefully fitted white limestone. Under the Egyptian sun, the monument would have appeared far brighter than it does now. Mera's journal brings us remarkably close to the people who created it. Behind the colossal monument was a world of schedules, boats, canals, supplies, inspections, food rations, and exhausted crews. The pyramid did not simply rise from the desert. Stone had to be quarried. Crews had to be fed. Ropes had to be maintained. Boats had to arrive at the right place at the right time. Someone had to count the days. And one of the people who counted them was Mera. He could never have known that fragments of his writing would survive longer than the kingdoms that followed him. He was not attempting to explain his civilization to us. He was recording information for people who already understood it. That is what makes the diary feel so immediate. Mera does not speak like a mysterious figure from the beginning of history. He sounds like a supervisor completing paperwork at the end of a long day. The Great Pyramid may appear almost supernatural when viewed from a distance, but Mera's records allow the human world surrounding it to return. We can imagine the boats moving slowly along the Nile, the pale blocks resting heavily upon their decks, the sound of men calling to one another across the water, and above the riverbank, growing a little taller each year, the unfinished shape of the pyramid. Mera's final fate is unknown. There is no grand tomb that can confidently be identified as his. No golden mask preserves his face. Only his notes remain. But sometimes history preserves the person who writes the schedule while forgetting the king who commanded the work. And sometimes history preserves a king not because his tomb was impossible to find, but because for thousands of years, almost everyone looked in the wrong place. Tutankhamun was not one of Egypt's most powerful pharaohs. He became king while still a child and died before reaching full adulthood. His reign was brief, and many of the decisions made in his name were probably shaped by older officials surrounding the throne. His tomb was also surprisingly small for a king. It was cut into the Valley of the Kings and filled quickly with an extraordinary collection of objects. Chariots, beds, chairs, clothing, food, jewelry, weapons, statues, shrines, and coffins were placed inside. Then the entrance was sealed. The tomb did not remain completely untouched. It appears to have been entered by robbers not long after the burial. Officials later restored order, refilled the passage, and sealed it again. Eventually, the tomb disappeared. This was not because its entrance had been protected by an elaborate trap. It disappeared because later workers covered it. More than a century after Tutankhamun's burial, another royal tomb was being constructed nearby for the kings now known as Ramesses V and Ramesses VI. Stone chips and debris from this later project accumulated over the area. Workers built huts above the buried ground. Beneath their feet was the staircase leading to Tutankhamun. They may not have known it was there. As generations passed, the young king faded from memory. His name had already been associated with an uncomfortable period of Egyptian history, and later rulers had little interest in preserving his legacy. The Valley of the Kings was eventually stripped of nearly all its visible wealth. Tomb robbers entered royal chambers, broke apart burials, and carried away anything valuable enough to move. But the debris above Tutankhamun's staircase remained. The small tomb was protected by its own disappearance. Thousands of years later, Howard Carter's excavation team began clearing the remains of the ancient workers' huts. On the 4th of November, 1922, they uncovered the top of a staircase cut into the rock. Step by step, the staircase descended toward a sealed doorway. Carter eventually made a small opening and looked into the darkness beyond. Warm air escaped from the chamber, air that had been trapped inside for centuries. by the light of a candle, shapes began to appear. Animals, statues, beds, chariots, black guardian figures, and gold. Objects were crowded together so densely that the room did not resemble an orderly royal tomb. It looked almost dreamlike, as though an entire palace had been folded into the dark. Tutankhamun became the most famous pharaoh in the modern world, not because he conquered the largest territory or built the greatest monument, but because so much of his burial survived. And it survived partly because history had forgotten him. The workers who unknowingly covered his entrance may have done more to protect his tomb than any guard, curse, or sealed door. Tutankhamun vanished beneath the construction of a later age. Then, more than 3,000 years afterward, the forgotten king returned. But his short reign had followed one of the strangest episodes in Egyptian history, a moment when another pharaoh attempted to change the gods themselves. Before he became Akhenaten, he was called Amenhotep IV. He inherited an Egypt filled with ancient gods: Amun, Osiris, Isis, Horus, Ptah, Hathor, Thoth, Anubis, and countless local deities had temples, priests, festivals, stories, and sacred places extending back through generations. Then the new pharaoh turned toward the sun. The Aten was represented as the visible disk of sunlight, its rays stretching downward like long arms, sometimes ending in tiny hands. Akhenaten elevated the Aten above Egypt's traditional gods and gradually pushed royal religion toward an increasingly exclusive form of worship. He changed his own name. He weakened the power of established temples. He ordered a new capital to be constructed on an empty stretch of land between the Nile and the eastern cliffs. The city was called Akhetaten, the horizon of the Aten. Today the site is known as Amarna. Boundary stones were carved into the surrounding cliffs, declaring the sacred limits of the new city. Palaces, temples, homes, workshops, and administrative buildings rose from the desert with remarkable speed. The Aten temples were unlike the shadowy sanctuaries traditionally built for Egyptian gods. They were open to the sky. Sunlight itself was part of the ritual. Egyptian art also changed. Akhenaten was shown with an elongated face, narrow eyes, a soft stomach, wide hips, and an unusually shaped skull. Members of the royal family appeared in intimate scenes, holding their children beneath the rays of the Aten. The images can feel surprisingly personal. The royal family touches, embraces, and mourns. Yet, the religion surrounding these scenes may have placed the king and his family between ordinary people and the divine light. Precisely what Akhenaten believed remains debated. It is tempting to call him the world's first monotheist, but the reality was probably more complicated. Traditional beliefs did not vanish instantly, and evidence suggests that parts of older funerary religion continued even within Akhenaten's court. What is clear is that his transformation was radical enough to disturb the foundations of Egyptian life. After his death, the experiment collapsed. The royal court abandoned Akhetaten. Temples of the old gods reopened. The young king, originally named Tutankhaten, changed his name to Tutankhamun, signaling the restoration of Amun. Akhenaten's monuments were dismantled. His images were attacked. His name was omitted from later royal lists. The city he created was left to the desert. For thousands of years, its streets lay beneath the sand, preserving the outline of a capital that had existed for only a brief moment. The houses emptied. the open temples fell silent. The sun continued to rise above the eastern cliffs, but the pharaoh who had devoted an entire city to its light was treated as though he had never ruled. Akhenaten attempted to change eternity. Instead, the civilization he tried to transform erased him. But he was not the only Egyptian ruler whose image was attacked after death. Years before Akhenaten was born, Egypt had been ruled by a king whose memory someone also attempted to destroy. Hatshepsut did not begin her rule as pharaoh. After the death of her husband, Thutmose II, she became regent for the young Thutmose III. At first, she governed on behalf of the child. Then something extraordinary happened. Hatshepsut took the full titles of an Egyptian king. She did not merely rule as a queen. She presented herself as pharaoh. Egyptian kingship had traditionally been expressed through masculine symbols, titles, and images. Hatshepsut therefore appeared in several different forms. In some statues, she was clearly represented as a woman. In others, she wore the striped royal headdress, the ceremonial false beard, and the traditional clothing of a male king. This was not necessarily an attempt to disguise who she was. Inscriptions could still refer to her with feminine language. The images expressed the office she occupied, an office whose visual form had been shaped by centuries of male rulers. Hatshepsut's reign appears to have been prosperous. She commissioned temples, obelisks, statues, and trading expeditions. A mortuary temple at Deir el-Bahri rose in enormous terraces against the cliffs of western Thebes, its architecture seeming to emerge directly from the stone. Carved scenes told of a voyage to the distant land of Punt. Ships returned carrying incense, precious materials, animals, and living myrrh trees. Her monuments presented a ruler whose authority had been approved by the gods. Then, roughly 20 years after her death, the destruction began. Statues of Hatshepsut were pulled down and smashed. Her names and images were removed from certain monuments. Some sculptures were thrown into pits near her own temple. The person most often connected with this campaign is Thutmose III, the young king who had once ruled beside her and who later became one of Egypt's most successful military pharaohs. But the reason for the destruction remains uncertain. It may not have been a sudden act of personal revenge. The attacks occurred long after Hatshepsut's death and may have been connected to questions of royal succession, legitimacy, or the desire to present an uninterrupted line of male kings. Whatever the motive, the erasure failed. The broken statues were still statues. The buried fragments remained beneath the ground. Her temple continued to stand against the cliffs. Thousands of years later, archaeologists recovered pieces of her face, shoulders, throne, and crown. Fragments that had been intended to destroy her memory instead helped reconstruct it. Today, Hatshepsut is one of the most recognizable rulers of ancient Egypt. The campaign against her reveals something deeply important about Egyptian belief. Destroying a person's image was not merely vandalism. A carved image could act as a home for part of the person's presence. An inscription could preserve their identity. A spoken name could keep someone connected to the world of the living. To damage those things was to threaten more than reputation. It was to threaten eternity. Because for the ancient Egyptians, death was not a single event. A person could die once when the body stopped breathing, and they could die again when their name was forgotten. The Egyptian journey into the afterlife did not end when a tomb was sealed. In many ways, it had only begun. The dead were expected to travel through a dangerous and changing world filled with gates, divine beings, rivers, caverns, flames, serpents, and hidden names. Knowledge offered protection. That knowledge was collected in funerary spells that modern scholars call the Book of the Dead. But there was no single Book of the Dead. It was not one fixed volume copied identically for every person. Different owners selected different spells according to tradition, preference, status, and what they could afford. Some collections were written on long rolls of papyrus and decorated with elaborate illustrations. Others were shorter or written upon coffins, linen, amulets, and tomb walls. The ancient title is often translated as the Book of Going Forth by Day. It was not a book about remaining among the dead. It was a guide to emerging again into light. The spells helped the deceased breathe, speak, remember their name, control their own body, avoid dangerous creatures, pass guarded gates, and take on different forms. A person might become a falcon, a lotus flower, a heron, or a divine being capable of traveling with the sun. But the most famous moment came in the Hall of Judgment. There, the deceased stood before Osiris. Their heart was placed upon one side of a balance. On the other side rested the feather of Ma'at, representing truth, balance, and the proper order of the universe. The heart was not merely an organ. Egyptians associated it with thought, memory, emotion, character, and moral responsibility. It carried the record of a person's life. If the heart balanced with the feather, the deceased could continue into the afterlife. If it failed, a creature commonly called Ammit waited nearby. Ammit combined the features of three dangerous animals: the crocodile, the lion, and the hippopotamus. She did not simply punish the dead. She devoured the heart, ending the person's hope of continued existence. The Egyptians therefore placed heart scarabs among the mummy's wrappings. These amulets could be inscribed with a spell asking the heart not to betray its owner during judgment. The deceased was, in a sense, asking their own memory to remain silent. It is an unsettling idea. At the end of life, no enemy accuses you. No stranger reveals your hidden actions. Your own heart speaks. Yet Egyptian judgment was not designed only to inspire fear. The desired afterlife was familiar and peaceful. Those who passed could enter a perfected version of existence, sometimes called the Field of Reeds. There were waterways, fertile fields, food, family, sunlight, and work without the suffering and uncertainty of mortal life. Eternity was not imagined as an entirely alien paradise. It resembled the Egypt they loved, restored to perfection. The Nile flowed, the crops grew, the sun returned, and the dead went forth by day. But humans were not the only beings prepared for eternity. Beneath the sand, ancient Egyptians placed animals by the millions. Somewhere beneath the Egyptian desert, there are corridors filled with animals. Cats wrapped in linen, ibises folded carefully into bundles, crocodiles, snakes, falcons, fish, dogs, shrews, and bulls. They were preserved, placed in containers, carried into underground galleries, and left in the darkness. Millions of animal mummies have been recovered from sites across Egypt. Some were beloved companions buried with their owners. Certain royal and sacred animals received elaborate treatment and could be mourned with enormous ceremony. But many animal mummies served another purpose. They were offerings. Egyptian gods could be associated with particular animals. The ibis and baboon were connected with Thoth. Falcons were linked with Horus. Cats were associated with Bastet. Crocodiles could represent Sobek. Worshippers visiting temples could dedicate mummified animals to these gods, creating a physical message that would remain within a sacred place. Over time, the practice grew to an extraordinary scale. Animals were prepared in vast numbers. Workshops wrapped them. Pilgrims obtained them. Priests carried them into underground catacombs where bundle after bundle accumulated across generations. Some catacombs stretch through long networks of passages cut beneath the ground. Imagine entering one by lamplight. The air is still. The walls close around you. Along the passage are jars, wooden boxes, tiny coffins, and linen forms whose shapes suggest the creatures hidden within. Not every bundle contains a complete animal, and the precise meaning of individual examples can vary. Modern scanning has allowed researchers to examine many mummies without unwrapping them, revealing bones, fragments, carefully positioned bodies, and sometimes unexpected contents. To modern eyes, the scale may seem strange or even disturbing. But within Egyptian religion, animals were not worshipped simply because they were animals. They could express qualities of the divine. A falcon rising into the sky resembled a god who crossed the heavens. A crocodile concealed beneath the water embodied invisible danger and power. A cat could be gentle within the home, then become a nearly perfect hunter in the darkness. The natural world was filled with sacred patterns. The animals beneath the desert were part of a living religious economy, one involving farmers, breeders, embalmers, artists, merchants, priests, pilgrims, and temple officials. The catacombs were therefore not isolated from everyday Egyptian life. They were created by it. And everyday life in ancient Egypt was far more recognizable than the silent monuments might suggest. People worried about food. They complained about their employers. They argued with officials. And when the workers responsible for constructing eternity were not paid, they put down their tools. Near the Valley of the Kings stood a settlement now called Deir el-Medina. It was home to the skilled workers who created Egypt's royal tombs. These were not anonymous laborers dragging stones beneath a whip. They were specialized artisans, painters, plasterers, stonecutters, scribes, and craftsmen. They understood the hidden architecture of the royal burial places because they were the people who built them. Their village stood between the fertile Nile Valley and the desert cliffs. The residents lived with their families in closely packed homes. They cooked meals, exchanged goods, raised children, wrote letters, made jokes, argued, prayed, borrowed objects, missed work, and recorded their problems on pieces of broken pottery and limestone. Because so many of their writings survived, we know them with unusual intimacy. Then, during the reign of Ramesses III, the workers stopped working. Their payment did not normally arrive as coins. They received rations, especially grain, which could feed their households and function as a form of wages. Those rations were delayed. The people responsible for decorating the pharaoh's eternal home could not reliably feed their own families. At first, they waited. Then, they walked away from the royal necropolis. The workers gathered near temples and refused to return to their duties, until someone addressed their complaints. It was a sit-in more than 3,000 years ago. Officials attempted to calm them. Rations were distributed, but the underlying problems continued, producing further protests. A scribe recorded the events on a document now known as the Strike Papyrus. It preserves the earliest recorded labor strikes in world history. There is something almost impossibly human about the story. These workers spent their lives painting gods across tomb walls and carving passages meant to carry kings into eternity. They understood the sacred importance of their work. But sacred importance did not fill an empty storage jar. The strike also reveals cracks within the Egyptian state. Rameses III ruled during a difficult period marked by warfare, economic pressure, political corruption, and instability. The enormous system that supported royal tomb construction was no longer functioning as smoothly as it once had. The workers felt the failure directly, so they did something simple and powerful. They stopped. The Valley of the Kings fell quiet. No chisels struck the stone. No painters filled the darkness with stars. The people who built the Pharaohs' afterlife waited outside and demanded food. Their protest survives because someone wrote it down. Without that damaged papyrus, the voices of the workers might have disappeared, leaving only the tombs they completed for other people. Instead, their frustration outlived the officials who ignored them. Their hunger became part of history, and the writings from their world reveal an Egypt populated not by silent statues, but by people who sometimes sounded astonishingly like us. They worried about the living. They feared the dead. And when a problem could not be solved in this world, some Egyptians wrote directly to someone in the next. The letter might be written on papyrus, or linen, or across the surface of a simple clay bowl. It would be addressed not to a king, governor, or distant friend. It would be addressed to someone who had died. Only a small number of ancient Egyptian letters to the dead have survived, but they cover enough time and distance to suggest a wider custom. They were placed in or near tombs, where the intended recipient was believed to exist in another form. These were not usually sentimental letters, written only to say that someone was missed. They were requests for help. A family might be suffering from illness, conflict, lost property, or unexplained misfortune. The writer could suspect that another spirit was causing the problem, or believe that the deceased relative had enough power in the next world to intervene. Some letters reminded the dead person of how well they had been treated while alive. The writer might mention the offerings that had been provided, or the care still being given to the tomb. There was almost a sense of negotiation. I cared for you. I continued to remember you. Now please help me. One surviving letter was written by a man to both of his dead parents, with one message placed inside a bowl and another written on its outer surface. Another preserves the appeal of a woman asking a deceased relative to protect her daughter. These are among the most personal voices to survive from ancient Egypt. They reveal a relationship with death that was neither simple acceptance nor complete separation. The dead were gone, but they had not vanished. They could remember. They could listen. They could become angry. They could offer protection. The boundary between the living and the dead was not an unbreakable wall. It was more like a river that messages might occasionally cross. Imagine the writer sitting in the light, carefully forming each sign. Perhaps the bowl was then carried to a tomb and placed beside an offering. Perhaps the writer spoke the words aloud. Perhaps there was no answer. Or perhaps the arrival of good fortune days later was understood as a response. We cannot know. What remains is the message. A voice from thousands of years ago speaking into the darkness, hoping that someone beloved still existed there. This may be the most haunting quality of ancient Egypt. Its monuments appear obsessed with death, yet nearly everything inside them was created because of a refusal to accept disappearance. Bodies were preserved so their owners could return. Names were carved into stone so they could still be spoken. Images were painted so food, family, sunlight, and music would continue. Letters were placed among the dead because love, responsibility, and unfinished problems did not end at the tomb. The Egyptians did not fill the desert with death. They filled it with attempts to remain alive. And as night settled over the Nile, the tombs waited silently beyond the fields, holding in names of those who believed morning would eventually come again. Beyond the tombs and temples, beyond the cliffs where the dead were hidden, there was the river. Almost everything in ancient Egypt depended upon it. The Nile carried water through a landscape that might otherwise have been consumed by desert. Along its banks, a thin ribbon of green stretched northward for hundreds of miles. Fields grew beside the water. Villages gathered upon higher ground. Boats moved between cities. Birds nested among the reeds. And beyond the cultivated land, the green world ended so suddenly that a person could sometimes stand with one foot upon fertile soil and the other upon sand. The ancient Egyptians called the dark, fertile land Kemet, the black land. Beyond it was Deshret, the red land of the desert. One offered food and life. The other offered danger, silence, precious minerals, and the dry ground in which the dead could be preserved. Egypt existed between them. For much of ancient history, the Nile rose each year, as rain falling far to the south traveled northward through the river system. The water spilled across the floodplain, covering fields and depositing fresh soil. When the waters withdrew, planting began. The Egyptians divided the year into 3 great seasons. Akhet was the season of inundation. Peret was the season when the land emerged and crops began growing. Shemu was the season of harvest. Time itself followed the river, but the flood was never completely predictable. If the water rose too little, fields could remain dry. If it rose too high, homes, storage buildings, and settlements could be damaged. The same river that created abundance could also bring hunger. Egyptians therefore watched the water carefully. Structures now called nilometers were used to measure the river's height. Some took the form of marked staircases descending toward the water. Others were wells or columns connected to the Nile. Priests and officials could observe the rising river and estimate what the coming agricultural year might bring. A good flood promised grain. Grain supported workers, temples, armies, and cities. The height of the river could influence taxes, because the state needed to know how productive the fields were likely to become. A mark upon a stone staircase could therefore carry the weight of an entire kingdom. The Nile was also the great road of Egypt. Traveling north was assisted by the river's current. Traveling south was helped by winds that often blew upriver. A sail could carry a boat toward the south, while lowered sails allowed the current to draw it north again. The geography of Egypt seemed almost designed for movement. The river connected places that might otherwise have been isolated by desert. Stone, grain, cattle, soldiers, officials, messages, statues, and the dead traveled upon its surface. So did gods. During festivals, sacred images could be carried from temples and placed aboard ceremonial boats. Crowds gathered along the banks as the divine procession moved across the water. Even the sun god traveled by boat. Each day, Ra crossed the sky in a solar vessel. Each night, he entered the underworld and sailed through darkness. There he faced enemies, passed through gates, and prepared for the sunrise. The Nile was therefore more than a source of water. It was a pattern repeated across the universe. The gods traveled as Egyptians traveled. The dead hoped to cross the next world as boats crossed the river. The sun itself followed an eternal current. At sunset, the western bank became associated with death because the sun disappeared there. Many cemeteries and royal tombs were placed in the west. The eastern bank, where the sun returned, was associated with life, temples, and renewal. Every morning, light crossed the river. Every evening, it returned to the land of the dead. The Egyptians watched this happen for thousands of years. Perhaps that is why so much of their religion feels less like a fear of death and more like a belief in repetition. The river rose, the fields returned, the sun disappeared, the sun came back. Nothing remained unchanged, but nothing truly ended. Near the greatest pyramid, archaeologists discovered a boat that may have been built for a king to continue that journey forever. In 1954, workers were clearing debris near the southern side of the Great Pyramid when they uncovered a line of enormous limestone blocks. The blocks covered a long pit cut into the ground. When one of them was lifted, an ancient scent escaped from below. It was the smell of cedar wood. Inside the sealed pit lay hundreds of carefully arranged wooden pieces. They did not immediately resemble a boat. The vessel had been dismantled before burial. Its planks, beams, ropes, oars, and other components had been placed inside in an organized sequence, as though someone expected that it might one day be assembled again. The wood had waited beside the pyramid for more than 4,000 years. The vessel is usually called the Khufu ship because it was buried beside the pyramid of King Khufu. It measured more than 40 meters in length when reconstructed. The hull had been built without metal nails. Wooden pieces were fitted together and bound with ropes in a technique that allowed the structure to flex upon the water. The cedar had probably come from the forests of Lebanon, showing how far Egyptian trade and royal resources could reach. Reassembling the boat became an enormous puzzle. Ancient shipwrights had left no written instructions. Every plank had to be studied. Every hole, groove, rope mark, and curve offered a clue. The restoration took years. Gradually, the scattered pieces became a vessel again. Its long wooden body rose from the fragments, elegant and narrow, with high ends curving upward. But the boat's original purpose remains uncertain. It may have carried the body of Khufu during his funeral. It may have been used ceremonially. It may have represented the king's solar boat, allowing him to travel with Ra across the sky. It may have served more than one purpose during its existence. There are signs that some pieces may have been exposed to water, although exactly where and how the vessel was used remains debated. Whatever its history, It was buried with extraordinary care. The Egyptians did not simply place a miniature model beside the king. They placed an entire ship. Perhaps they believed that nothing less would be suitable for eternity. The buried boat also reminds us that the pyramid complex was never only a pile of stone. It was a landscape of temples, causeways, ceremonies, offerings, priests, waterways, and movement. The pyramid stood at the center of a much larger machine designed to transform a dead king. After death, Khufu was expected to rise, join the gods, and travel into the sky. The boat may have been part of that transformation. Imagine the vessel before it was dismantled. The cedar bright and fresh, the ropes pulled tight, the hull resting near the Nile or upon a ceremonial lake. Perhaps priests gathered beside it. Perhaps royal banners moved in the wind. Perhaps the dead king was carried aboard beneath the Egyptian sun. Then the journey ended. The boat was taken apart. Each piece was lowered into the pit. The limestone roof was sealed above it. The pyramid watched over the place. Centuries passed. The Nile slowly shifted farther away. The temples fell. The priests disappeared. The language spoken by the builders was forgotten. But the boat remained. It had been buried as though it would someday be needed again. And in a way, it was. Thousands of years later, the pieces were lifted into the light and joined together once more. A ship prepared for the journey of a dead king returned to the world of the living. Yet the destination imagined for that king was not only beneath the earth, it was above it. The oldest Egyptian rulers hoped to join stars that never disappeared. To the ancient Egyptians, the night sky was not empty. It was a living landscape. The Milky Way crossed the darkness. Planets wandered among fixed lights. Constellations rose, traveled, and vanished. The moon changed shape, and in the northern sky, certain stars appeared to circle endlessly without sinking beneath the horizon. The Egyptians called these the imperishable stars. Because they never seemed to set, they became symbols of eternal existence. The earliest pyramid texts describe dead kings rising toward the northern sky and joining these undying stars. A pharaoh did not merely remain inside his tomb. He escaped it. He climbed toward the heavens. He became part of a region where light never disappeared. This may help explain why the orientation of pyramids mattered so deeply. The sides of the Great Pyramid were aligned remarkably closely with the cardinal directions. Exactly how ancient surveyors achieved this remains debated, but careful observations of the sun and stars were almost certainly involved. Egyptian priests and specialists watched the sky across generations. They learned when stars first appeared. They used celestial movement to organize ritual, agriculture, and time. One of the most important stars was Sirius, known to the Egyptians as Sopdet. Its first visible appearance before sunrise occurred near the beginning of the Nile's annual flooding during parts of Egyptian history. The star, the river, and the new year became connected. A light returning to the dawn sky announced that the land itself would soon be renewed. The Egyptians also divided the night using groups of stars, now called decans. Different decans rose at different times, allowing observers to estimate the passing hours. Before mechanical clocks, the heavens became a clock large enough to cover the entire world. On certain coffin lids and tomb ceilings, stars were arranged into diagrams. Tables could indicate which star group should rise during each portion of the night. priests responsible for rituals needed to know when particular ceremonies should begin. Time was not measured only by shadow and sunlight. It was read from the darkness. Imagine an observer standing upon a temple roof. The air has cooled, the sounds of the city have softened. Oil lamps burn behind the walls below. Above, the stars move almost too slowly to notice. Yet over the hours, one group rises and another crosses the sky. The observer waits. Perhaps an instrument is held against the eye. Perhaps a colleague stands some distance away as a second point of alignment. A whispered instruction passes between them. A star reaches its proper place. Somewhere inside the temple, a ritual begins. Egyptian temples were built as models of cosmic order. Ceilings could be painted deep blue and covered with golden stars. Columns became bundles of papyrus or lotus plants. The floor represented the fertile ground. The sanctuary lay deep within the building, like the first mound of creation, emerging from the primeval waters. To enter a temple was, symbolically, to enter the universe. The sky rested overhead. The world grew beneath it. The god waited in darkness at the center. Some tomb ceilings went further, showing the goddess Nut stretched across the heavens. Her body formed the sky. Each evening, she swallowed the sun. Through the night, the sun traveled within her. Each morning, she gave birth to it again. The image transformed the entire night into a hidden process of renewal. Darkness did not mean that the sun had ceased to exist. It meant that the sun was traveling somewhere unseen. The dead hoped to follow the same path. Stars therefore appeared above burial chambers, not simply as decoration, but as destination. The tomb was beneath the earth. Its ceiling opened toward eternity. And while priests studied the heavens to measure the night, ordinary Egyptians also searched the darkness for messages. Sometimes those messages came from dreams. One night, more than 3,000 years ago, an Egyptian dreamed that he saw himself eating crocodile flesh. Another dreamed that he was looking through a window. Another may have dreamed of seeing his own face in a mirror. When they awoke, they could not search for the meaning online or open a modern book of symbols. But some Egyptians had access to something else, a dream manual. A surviving papyrus from the Ramesside period contains a long list of dreams and their possible meanings. It is often called the Dream Book. The document was found among the writings associated with Deir el-Medina, the same community whose workers built the royal tombs. Its interpretations follow a simple pattern. First comes the dream, then the judgment, good or bad, then the predicted meaning. Some dreams promised prosperity, authority, celebration, or the defeat of enemies. Others warned of illness, conflict, loss, or approaching danger. The logic behind the interpretations can be difficult to understand. A symbol that feels frightening to us might be considered favorable. An ordinary action might conceal a terrible warning. The dream was a language, but not one whose grammar was obvious. To understand it, the dreamer needed someone who knew the signs. Dreams occupied an uncertain space. They were private experiences created inside the sleeping mind, yet they could be treated as messages arriving from beyond ordinary awareness. A god might appear in a dream. A dead relative might speak. The future might briefly reveal itself. An illness might announce its presence before the body fully understood it. Dreaming weakened the boundary between worlds. A person lay motionless, eyes closed, while another version of the self traveled through impossible places. Egyptian religion already accepted that a human being contained several connected parts. The body was only one part of the person. There was also the ka, associated with life force and sustenance. There was the ba, often shown as a bird with a human head, capable of movement between the tomb and the world outside. There was the shadow, the name, the heart, the transformed spirit. Identity was not a single indivisible thing. It was a gathering of elements that had to remain in harmony. Sleep may therefore have felt like a small mystery of the soul. Where did the dreamer go? Who created the images? Why did some dreams disappear instantly, while others remained vivid for years? Egyptians sometimes sought divine guidance through dreams. In later periods especially, individuals could sleep within or near sacred places in the hope of receiving healing, instruction, or an answer from a god. The silence of the temple at night may have made every sound feel significant. A footstep in a corridor, the movement of fabric, wind pressing against a doorway, an animal calling somewhere beyond the wall, then sleep. And perhaps within that sleep, a voice. Dream interpretation was not unique to Egypt, but the surviving manual gives us a rare glimpse of how one community tried to organize the uncertainty. The papyrus divides dreamers into categories and lists signs one after another, as though even the most mysterious parts of the night might be classified. A dream could be observed, recorded, compared, explained. The Egyptians often responded to uncertainty this way. They wrote spells for dangerous journeys. They measured the river. They charted the stars. They listed the meanings of dreams. They attempted to give structure to the invisible. But not every frightening experience came from a god or spirit. Sometimes the danger was physical. A wound, a broken bone, a fever, a swelling beneath the skin. And when the body failed, Egyptian healers opened their own books. Ancient Egyptian medicine existed between two worlds. One was practical, the other was magical. A healer might examine a wound, measure a pulse, prepare a bandage, and observe whether a patient was improving. The same healer might also recite words of protection or identify a supernatural force believed to be causing the illness. To the Egyptians, these approaches did not necessarily contradict one another. The body existed within a universe filled with gods, spirits, substances, hidden channels, and dangerous influences. Healing required knowledge of all of them. Several medical papyri have survived. One of the most remarkable is known as the Edwin Smith Papyrus. The surviving document was written long after its old kingdom, but it appears to preserve material copied from a much older medical tradition. It contains a series of injuries arranged roughly from the head downward. A damaged skull, a broken jaw, a wound to the throat, injuries to the shoulders, arms, ribs, and spine. Each case follows a method. The physician examines the patient. The symptoms are described. A diagnosis is offered. Then comes a judgment. An ailment I will treat. An ailment with which I will contend. Or an ailment not to be treated. The final category can sound cold, but it reveals honesty. Some injuries were beyond the healer's ability. The physician could recognize when intervention was unlikely to succeed. The papyrus contains observations that feel startlingly direct. A healer might ask the patient to move a limb, touch a wound, observe swelling, check whether the person could speak. Notice where the fluid escaped from an injury. The body became evidence. One case describes a spinal injury, followed by paralysis, loss of sensation, and other severe symptoms. The physician could not repair the damage, but the connection between the wound and the patient's condition was observed and recorded. Another medical collection, the Ebers Papyrus, contains hundreds of remedies addressing a wide range of problems: digestive illness, skin conditions, pain, parasites, eye disease, breathing difficulties. Many preparations combined plants, minerals, animal products, oils, beer, wine, honey, and other ingredients. Some remedies may have offered genuine relief. Others would have been ineffective. Some may have been harmful. But the papyri show generations of people trying to understand patterns within illness. Honey, for example, appeared in wound treatments. Its properties may have made certain preparations useful, even though the Egyptians did not know about bacteria in the modern sense. Splints could stabilize injured limbs. Linen could cover wounds. Willow was included in some remedies, a plant now known to contain compounds related to later pain-relieving medicines. Yet magic remained close beside observation. Illness could be imagined as an intruder that needed to be driven away. Words were spoken over medicine. Protective figures were drawn. Gods associated with healing were called upon. A remedy could work through its ingredients and through the power of the spell accompanying it. This was not simply ignorance. It was an attempt to treat suffering within the complete worldview available at the time. Egyptian physicians could also become specialists. Some texts and inscriptions refer to healers associated with particular parts of the body, including the eyes, teeth, or abdomen. There were palace physicians, temple healers, and practitioners serving workers and communities. The title of physician could carry status. Yet even the best healer faced the same mystery that medicine still faces today. Why does one person recover while another does not? Why can a small wound become deadly? Why does pain sometimes appear where no injury can be seen? The Egyptians listened to the body as carefully as they could. They placed fingers upon the pulse. They watched the breath. They studied the color of skin. They asked where it hurt. And somewhere beside the patient, a scribe preserved what they learned. The medical papyri do not show a civilization that possessed secret modern science. They show something more human. People encountering suffering and refusing to look away. People recording what happened. People trying again. Yet some Egyptian wonders were not written into medical books or dream manuals. Some were heard. For centuries, travelers crossed the desert to listen to a statue sing. On the western bank of the Nile near ancient Thebes, two enormous seated figures still face the rising sun. They once stood before the mortuary temple of Amenhotep III. The temple itself was among the largest ever constructed in Egypt, but floods, earthquakes, stone removal, and centuries of destruction reduced much of it to ruins. The two statues remained. Each is more than 18 meters tall. They show the king seated upon a throne, hands resting upon his knees, gazing eastward across the river. Today, they are known as the Colossi of Memnon. But Memnon was not an Egyptian pharaoh. He was a figure from Greek mythology, a warrior associated with the dawn. The name became attached to the statues because one of them began doing something extraordinary. It made a sound. After an earthquake, damaged the northern Colossus in the 1st century, before the Common Era, travelers reported hearing a strange tone near sunrise. The sound was described in different ways. A musical note, the snapping of a string, the striking of metal, a faint human voice. It did not happen every morning. Some visitors waited and heard nothing. Others claimed the statue greeted the dawn. The sound may have been caused by stone warming as sunlight reached the damaged monument. Temperature changes, moisture, and cracks within the structure may have produced vibration. But to ancient visitors, the explanation was not merely physical. The statue had become an oracle. People traveled from distant parts of the Roman world, hoping to hear it. Officials, soldiers, poets, governors, and wealthy tourists carved inscriptions upon the Colossus to record their visits. Some wrote that they had heard Memnon speak. Others named the date, the hour, and the people who stood beside them. Even members of the imperial court came. The Roman Emperor Hadrian visited with his entourage. The poet Julia Balbilla, traveling with the emperor and empress, composed verses that were carved upon the statue. Her words remain there today. Imagine the gathering before sunrise. The colossal figures are almost invisible against the dark cliffs. Visitors wait at their feet. The air is cold. The eastern sky begins to pale above the Nile. No one speaks. Then the first sunlight reaches the broken stone. A faint sound emerges. Perhaps it lasts only a moment. Perhaps it resembles nothing more than rock shifting as it warms. But the people below have crossed countries to hear it. To them, the statue has awakened. Centuries later, the Roman Emperor Septimius Severus ordered the damaged Colossus repaired. The broken upper section was rebuilt. The monument looked more complete, and the singing stopped. The repair may have closed the cracks or changed the conditions that produced the sound. An attempt to restore the statue may have silenced the very thing that made it famous. The Colossus has remained quiet ever since. Its visitors are gone. The Roman inscriptions weather upon its legs. The temple behind it is mostly absent. But every morning, the statue still faces the sunrise, as it has for more than 3,000 years. It no longer speaks. Perhaps it never truly did. Yet for generations, people stood beneath it and believed that stone could greet the dawn. Egyptian monuments often carried messages. Kings covered temple walls with scenes of victory. Enemies fell, gods approved. Pharaohs appeared larger than everyone round them. But those messages were not always the full truth. Sometimes a king could turn an uncertain battle into an eternal triumph simply by carving the story deeply enough. Ramses. Long before the Great Pyramid was built, Egypt's earliest kings were buried near a place called Abydos. Their tombs were cut into the desert at a cemetery now known as el-Ka'ab. The name means Mother of Pots, a reference to the enormous quantity of broken pottery scattered across the ground. For centuries, pilgrims brought offerings to the area. Clay vessels were deposited, used, broken, and replaced. The fragments accumulated until the desert itself seemed made from them. Some of Egypt's first rulers were buried there. Names such as Jer, Jet, Den, and Qua belong to a period so early that later Egyptians could barely separate history from legend. Their tombs were not pyramids. They were underground burial complexes surrounded by chambers containing goods for the afterlife. some early royal burials were accompanied by the graves of other people, possibly members of the court or servants who died around the same time. The exact circumstances remain debated. Over generations, Egyptian burial customs changed. Royal tombs moved elsewhere. The cemetery aged. The identities of some early kings became uncertain. Then one tomb began to take on a different meaning. The burial of King Jer came to be associated with Osiris. Osiris was the murdered god who became ruler of the dead. According to later traditions, his brother Seth killed him and scattered his body. Isis, the wife of Osiris, searched for the pieces and restored him. Their son Horus eventually confronted Seth and claimed the throne. Osiris did not return to ordinary earthly life. He became something else. The first great dead king, the ruler of a hidden kingdom. The promise that death could lead to transformation. At Abydos, people came to believe that part of Osiris had been buried there, perhaps his head. An ancient royal tomb became the tomb of a god. History became mythology. The landscape filled with pilgrimage. Egyptians wanted to be close to Osiris. Those who could not be buried at Abydos might erect a memorial monument there. Small chapels and inscribed stelae allowed individuals and families to participate in the sacred place. Their names stood beside prayers and images. They hoped to join the festivals of Osiris for eternity. During these festivals, a sacred image of the god traveled in procession. The journey reenacted conflict, death, mourning, triumph, and renewal. Crowds may have watched portions of the ceremony, while more secret rites occurred beyond ordinary view. The god disappeared. The god returned. The story repeated each year. Abydos became a place where the boundaries between past and eternity grew thin. The first kings of Egypt lay beneath the ground. The god of resurrection was believed to rest among them. Pilgrims covered the desert with offerings. The living built monuments so their names could remain near the road of the dead. Centuries later, King Seti I constructed a magnificent temple at Abydos. Its walls contain refined reliefs showing the king before the gods. Within the temple is the famous Abydos King List, a sequence of royal names reaching back toward the beginning of Egyptian history. The list was not a complete, neutral record. Certain rulers considered illegitimate or troubling were omitted. Akhenaten does not appear. Hatshepsut does not appear. The list presents the past as Seti wanted it remembered. Yet beside this carefully controlled history stood a place where memory had already escaped control. A forgotten king's tomb had become the grave of Osiris. Thousands of broken vessels covered the desert. Pilgrims continued arriving long after the original meaning of the cemetery had changed. No single ruler had designed this transformation. It had grown slowly through belief, repetition, and time. That may be one of the strangest things about ancient Egypt. Its civilization lasted long enough for its own history to become sacred mythology. A king could become a god. A tomb could become the entrance to another world. A ruined cemetery could become one of the holiest places in the land. And beneath the sand, the original occupants remained silent, while generations of visitors arrived to honor someone else. At Abydos, it becomes difficult to know where memory ends and myth begins. Perhaps the Egyptians did not see a clear boundary. To them, the past was not gone. It was still active, still powerful, still capable of shaping the living. The first kings rested beneath the desert. Osiris ruled beyond the horizon. The Nile continued flowing north. And each night, when the sun vanished into the west, the oldest stories of Egypt began again. Long before the Great Pyramid was built, Egypt's earliest kings were buried near a place called Abydos. Their tombs were cut into the desert at a cemetery now known as el-Ka'ab. The name means Mother of Pots, a reference to the enormous quantity of broken pottery scattered across the ground. For centuries, pilgrims brought offerings to the area. Clay vessels were deposited, used, broken, and replaced. The fragments accumulated until the desert itself seemed made from them. Some of Egypt's first rulers were buried there. Names such as Jet, Den, and Kwa belong to a period so early that later Egyptians could barely separate history from legend. Their tombs were not pyramids. They were underground burial complexes surrounded by chambers containing goods for the afterlife. Some early royal burials were accompanied by the graves of other people, possibly members of the court or servants who died around the same time. The exact circumstances remain debated. Over generations, Egyptian burial customs changed. Royal tombs moved elsewhere. The cemetery aged. The identities of some early kings became uncertain. Then one tomb began to take on a different meaning. The burial of King Jer came to be associated with Osiris. Osiris was the murdered god who became ruler of the dead. According to later traditions, his brother Seth killed him and scattered his body. Isis, the wife of Osiris, searched for the pieces and restored him. Their son Horus eventually confronted Seth and claimed the throne. Osiris did not return to ordinary earthly life. He became something else. The first great dead king, the ruler of a hidden kingdom. The promise that death could lead to transformation. At Abydos, people came to believe that part of Osiris had been buried there, perhaps his head. An ancient royal tomb became the tomb of a god. History became mythology. The landscape filled with pilgrimage. Egyptians wanted to be close to Osiris. Those who could not be buried at Abydos might erect a memorial monument there. Small chapels and inscribed stelae allowed individuals and families to participate in the sacred place. Their names stood beside prayers and images. They hoped to join the festivals of Osiris for eternity. During these festivals, a sacred image of the god traveled in procession. The journey reenacted conflict, death, mourning, triumph, and renewal. Crowds may have watched portions of the ceremony, while more secret rites occurred beyond ordinary view. The god disappeared. The god returned. The story repeated each year. Abydos became a place where the boundaries between past and eternity grew thin. The first kings of Egypt lay beneath the ground. The god of resurrection was believed to rest among them. Pilgrims covered the desert with offerings. The living built monuments so their names could remain near the road of the dead. Centuries later, King Seti I constructed a magnificent temple at Abydos. Its walls contain refined reliefs showing the king before the gods. Within the temple is the famous Abydos King List, a sequence of royal names reaching back toward the beginning of Egyptian history. The list was not a complete, neutral record. Certain rulers considered illegitimate or troubling were omitted. Akhenaten does not appear. Hatshepsut does not appear. The list presents the past as Seti wanted it remembered. Yet beside this carefully controlled history stood a place where memory had already escaped control. A forgotten king's tomb had become the grave of Osiris. Thousands of broken vessels covered the desert. Pilgrims continued arriving long after the original meaning of the cemetery had changed. No single ruler had designed this transformation. It had grown slowly through belief, repetition, and time. That may be one of the strangest things about ancient Egypt. Its civilization lasted long enough for its own history to become sacred mythology. A king could become a god. A tomb could become the entrance to another world. A ruined cemetery could become one of the holiest places in the land. And beneath the sand, the original occupants remained silent, while generations of visitors arrived to honor someone else. At Abydos, it becomes difficult to know where memory ends and myth begins. Perhaps the Egyptians did not see a clear boundary. To them, the past was not gone. It was still active, still powerful, still capable of shaping the living. The first kings rested beneath the desert. Osiris ruled beyond the horizon. The Nile continued flowing north. And each night, when the sun vanished into the west, the oldest stories of Egypt began again. The gods of ancient Egypt rarely remained in one shape. Horus could appear as a falcon, as a man with the head of a falcon, as a child seated upon his mother's lap, or as a winged sun crossing the sky. Hathor could appear as a woman, a cow, a woman with the ears of a cow, or a face emerging mysteriously from a temple column. Anubis could be shown as a dark canine lying watchfully upon a shrine, or as a human figure wearing the narrow head of that same animal. A single divine being might possess many appearances, and several gods could sometimes share the same one. This can make the Egyptian pantheon feel confusing, as though its artists had created an enormous collection of creatures assembled from incompatible parts. Human bodies with falcon heads, women crowned with cow horns, men with the heads of ibises, rams, crocodiles, jackals, or creatures that cannot be matched confidently to any living animal. But the Egyptians were not simply imagining that their gods walked around as human beings with animal heads. The images were a visual language. A god was greater than any single form that could be carved into stone. The artist therefore selected a shape that revealed something about the invisible being represented. The falcon soared high above the landscape, seeing the world from a place no human could reach. It became an ideal image for Horus, god of the sky and divine model of kingship. The crocodile could remain almost motionless beneath the surface of the river before exploding into sudden violence. Its hidden strength belonged to Sobek. The ibis moved through the shallow water with a long, curved beak, searching carefully beneath the surface. It became associated with Thoth, a god of wisdom, writing, calculation, and the moon. The lioness was fast, powerful, protective of her young, and often more visibly involved in hunting than the male lion. She expressed the dangerous force of Sekhmet. But the animal was not simply a symbol in the modern sense. The relationship between animal and deity could be much deeper. A living animal might become the temporary earthly manifestation of a god. A sacred bull could be selected through particular markings, housed within a temple complex, cared for by priests, shown to worshippers, and mourned when it died. Yet this did not mean that every bull was the god, nor did it mean the god existed nowhere else. The divine presence could move through many forms at once. Egyptian religion rarely demanded that a god be only one thing. Amun could merge with Ra and become Amun-Ra. Ra could join with Horus as Ra-Horakhti. A goddess might appear as the daughter of one god in one story, and the mother of that same divine power in another. These were not always seen as contradictions requiring a single solution. A god could be parent and child, male and female, visible and hidden, one and many. The Egyptian universe was not organized like a family tree that remained permanently fixed. It was closer to a river whose channels divided and met again. Divine identities flowed into one another. The sun at dawn was not the same as the sun at noon, yet it was still the sun. The Nile in flood appeared different from the quiet river of the dry season, yet it remained the Nile. A god could transform without ceasing to be itself. This may also explain why Egyptian images were so carefully controlled. A divine statue was not intended merely to decorate a temple. It could become a place through which a god entered the human world. The materials mattered. The pose mattered. The crown, staff, color, animal head, inscription, and name helped establish the identity of the being invited to inhabit it. Without the inscription, modern scholars sometimes struggle to identify a divine figure. A lion-headed goddess might be Sekhmet, or Bastet, or Wadjet, or another goddess sharing the same dangerous protective form. To an Egyptian priest, the written name could resolve the uncertainty. The name did more than label the statue. It helped make the statue what it was. This was a world in which an image could contain presence and a name could contain power. To know the full identity of a divine being was not a small thing. It was to possess something belonging to the god itself. And according to one ancient story, the goddess Isis became the most powerful magician in existence by discovering the one name that the sun god had hidden from everyone. But before she could challenge the oldest god in creation, Isis had already become part of another story. A story of murder, dismemberment, and a dead king who refused to disappear. There was never one single complete version of the story of Osiris. It grew slowly through thousands of years of Egyptian religion. Different temples preserved different details. Funerary texts referred to moments within the story without always explaining them. Later writers attempted to gather the fragments into a continuous tale. But at the center of nearly every version was a broken family. Osiris ruled as a king. Beside him was Isis, his sister and wife, a goddess whose intelligence and magical knowledge would eventually become greater than that of almost every other divine being. Their brother Seth was connected with the desert, storms, violence, disorder, and the dangerous forces beyond the cultivated land. Seth was not always purely evil. He could be powerful and necessary. In some traditions, he stood aboard the solar boat and fought the enemies of Ra. He represented a force that could defend order when properly directed. But in the story of Osiris, Seth became the murderer. Precisely how he killed his brother differs between accounts. The most famous later telling describes a beautiful chest made to fit Osiris perfectly. Seth presents it during a gathering and promises it to whoever can lie inside. Osiris enters. The lid slams shut. The container is sealed and thrown into the river. This version was recorded long after the Pharaonic period, and many of its details cannot be traced clearly to Egypt's earliest texts. Older Egyptian sources speak more indirectly. Osiris was struck down. He drowned or was cast into the water. His body was cut apart. His brother became his enemy. The exact method mattered less than the cosmic result. The rightful king had been murdered. Order had been violated. Death had entered the royal family. Isis began searching. She was joined by her sister Nephthys, who was also associated with mourning and the protection of the dead. The two goddesses crossed the land looking for the body of Osiris. In temple rituals and funerary texts, their grief became a sacred sound. They called to him. They asked him to wake. They urged his heart to return. They spread their wings around his body, protecting him as birds protect their young. The dead king was gathered together. Anubis, the guardian of embalming, helped prepare the body. The first mummy was created not simply to preserve what death had left behind, but to make transformation possible. The wrappings restored unity. The body that had been divided became whole. The murdered king was given form again. Yet Osiris did not return to continue his old life. He awakened in another kingdom. His skin could be painted green, the color of vegetation and new growth, or black, the color of the rich soil left by the Nile. He became the ruler of the underworld. Every deceased person hoped to become an Osiris. Funerary texts placed his name before the name of the dead. A person might enter the tomb as an ordinary human being and emerge from ritual as an Osiris capable of renewal. The myth transformed death into a process. A body could be broken, a name could be threatened, a life could appear to end. But through preservation, mourning, ritual, and magic, something could continue. Before Osiris withdrew fully into the kingdom of the dead, Isis conceived a child by him. That child was Horus. He was the heir Seth could not be allowed to find. Isis hid him in the papyrus marshes of the Nile Delta. The young god grew among reeds, insects, snakes, scorpions, and concealed waterways. He was vulnerable. His father was dead. His uncle occupied the throne. His mother protected him with magic and secrecy, waiting for the day when he could challenge Seth and restore the proper order of Egypt. The story of Osiris became inseparable from Egyptian kingship. Every living pharaoh could be associated with Horus, the rightful son upon the throne. Every dead pharaoh could become Osiris, the father ruling beyond the world. When one king died and another was crowned, the ancient drama happened again. Osiris entered the west. Horus rose in the east. The throne passed from father to son. Order survived death. But Isis did not rely only upon patience. She was the great of magic. Her words could heal poison, protect a child, restore a body, and deceive the gods themselves. And before Horus could inherit the throne of Egypt, his mother decided he would also inherit the hidden power of Ra. Ra had grown old. He had ruled over gods and humans since the earliest days of creation, crossing the sky and illuminating everything beneath him. But age had entered even the body of the sun god. His mouth weakened. His saliva fell to the ground. Isis watched. She already knew countless spells. She understood the names of things in heaven and earth. But Ra possessed a name that no one else knew. It was not the ordinary name spoken in prayers. It was not Ra, Atum, Khepri, or any title carved openly upon temple walls. This was the hidden name inside him, his true identity, the source of his deepest power. Isis wanted that knowledge for Horus, but Ra would never surrender it willingly. So the goddess gathered the saliva that had fallen from the old god's mouth. She mixed it with earth. From this combination of divine substance and soil, she formed a serpent. The serpent was not one of Ra's own creations. Because he had not made it, he did not know its nature. Isis placed the creature upon the path where the sun god traveled through his kingdom. Ra passed. The serpent struck. Its venom entered him. The god whose heat burned across the sky was filled with a pain he could not understand. He cried out. The sound reached the other gods. They gathered around him, asking what had happened. But Ra could not name his attacker. He had not seen it. He had not created it. He could not command the poison because he did not know what it was. Isis approached with the calm authority of a healer. She told Ra that she could remove the venom, but magic required the true name of the sufferer. Ra began listing his identities. He was the creator of heaven and earth. He formed the mountains. He made the river. He caused the day to exist. He was Khepri in the morning, Ra at midday, and Atum in the evening. But Isis listened and remained unmoved. These were great names. They were not the secret one. The poison continued burning through him. Ra's suffering became unbearable. Finally, he agreed. His hidden name would pass from his body into Isis. The text does not reveal the name to us. The moment of transfer is concealed. The reader is allowed to approach the secret, but not to possess it. Isis receives the name and uses her magic. She commands the poison to leave. Ra is healed. The oldest god survives, but his deepest power is no longer his alone. Isis declares that the name will pass to her son. Horus will inherit knowledge that even the other gods do not possess. The story is unsettling because Isis does not defeat Ra through greater physical strength. She studies him. She waits for weakness. She creates a danger he cannot understand. Then she offers the only cure. It is both an act of healing and an act of divine theft. Yet within Egyptian magic, knowledge and identity were inseparable. To know the true name of something was to gain influence over it. Names could be written upon protective objects. The names of dangerous beings could be identified before they were driven away. The deceased learned the names of gates and guardians so they could pass through the underworld. A magician did not overcome chaos through force alone. The magician defined it. To name a thing was to bring it within the reach of order. The story of Isis and Ra therefore reveals why Egyptian texts sometimes feel like lists of mysterious names. The names were not unnecessary decoration. They were tools. The universe could be navigated if its hidden identities were known. Ra's secret name remained hidden even after the story was written down. Perhaps no human reader was ever expected to learn it. Perhaps the power of the tale came from knowing that such a name existed. Somewhere inside the light of the sun was a word no mortal could speak. Isis alone had heard it. And because she knew it, she could protect her son against dangers that would have destroyed an ordinary child. Even so, one night in the marshes, Isis returned to find Horus lying silent upon the ground. The papyrus marshes protected Horus from Seth. They also hid dangers of their own. Snakes moved among the reeds. Scorpions concealed themselves beneath stones and plants. Crocodiles waited in the channels. A child could disappear within moments. Isis sometimes had to leave the hiding place to search for food. In one magical tradition, she returned and found the infant Horus lying motionless. His body was weak. Poison had entered him. No one had seen what bit or stung the child. Isis cried out. Her voice traveled through the marshes. The local people came running, but they could not help. The child of Osiris, heir to the throne of Egypt, appeared to be dying before he could confront the murderer of his father. The universe itself seemed to pause. Horus was more than a child. He was the future king. If he died, Seth's victory would become permanent. Wrongdoing would remain upon the throne. The pattern of renewal would break. In some versions, the boat of Ra stopped in the sky. The sun would not continue while Horus lay poisoned. The god Thoth descended with words of power. He assured Isis that the child could be restored. The poison was named and commanded. The danger was driven from every part of the young god's body. Horus stirred. Breath returned. The sun continued on its path. The story became more than an episode from the childhood of a god. It became a cure that could be repeated. If divine words had saved Horus, those same words might save a human child. Centuries later, Egyptians carved images of the young Horus upon magical stone slabs, now called tipi. He was shown standing above crocodiles. In his hands he gripped snakes, scorpions, lions, gazelles, and other creatures associated with danger. Above him appeared the strange face of Bes, a protective god who watched over homes, mothers, and children. Horus was no longer the helpless infant in the reeds. He controlled the creatures that once threatened him. The stone was covered with spells. To activate them, the words could be spoken aloud, but the object could also be used in a more physical way. Water was poured across the carved surface. It flowed over the image of Horus. It crossed the written spells. The liquid was believed to absorb their healing power. A person suffering from a snake bite or scorpion sting could drink the water or have it applied to the body. The myth entered them in liquid form. The victim became Horus. The terrified parent became Isis. The present danger became the ancient poison already defeated by the gods. This was one of the central methods of Egyptian magic. The patient was placed inside a sacred story whose ending was known. Horus had survived. Therefore, the person identified with Horus might survive. The spell did not merely ask a god for help. It recreated the moment in which help had already succeeded. We can imagine the scene. Someone has been stung in the darkness. A family gathers around them. The injured person begins to weaken. A healer brings the carved stone. Water is poured slowly over the figure of the child god. The words are recited. The water collects in a vessel below. Perhaps the victim drinks. Perhaps the room becomes very quiet while everyone waits. Some recovered, some did not. But the stone offered more than medicine. It offered a story strong enough to stand against panic. The most powerful child in the universe had once lain motionless in the marsh. His mother had believed she was losing him. Then the poison left. His eyes opened. Morning returned. Horus grew into the god destined to challenge Seth. But defeating his uncle would not be simple. The struggle for Egypt's throne became one of the strangest divine trials ever written. After Osiris was murdered, both Horus and Seth claimed the right to rule Egypt. Horus was the son of the dead king. By inheritance, the throne should have passed to him. But Seth was older, stronger, and already powerful. The dispute went before a divine court. The gods argued. Some supported Horus. Others hesitated. Ra himself was not always convinced that the young god was ready to rule. In the most extensive surviving literary version, the conflict lasts for 80 years. This was not a solemn courtroom drama. The story is unpredictable, violent, humorous, crude, and sometimes almost absurd. The gods send messages. They change their minds. They become angry. They attempt to trick one another. The court repeatedly fails to reach a permanent decision. At one point, the goddess Neith is asked to judge from a distance. She recommends giving the throne to Horus, while compensating Seth with wealth and divine companions. The advice is not accepted. The gods continue arguing. Isis intervenes again and again on behalf of her son. Seth objects to her presence, knowing she can deceive him. The court moves its proceedings to an island and orders the ferryman not to bring Isis across. She disguises herself as an old woman. She offers the ferryman a golden ring. He allows her aboard. Once upon the island, Isis transforms into a beautiful young woman and approaches Seth. She tells him a fictional story. Her husband has died. A stranger has taken her son's inheritance and driven away the family's cattle. She asks Seth whether this is just. Seth is outraged. The son, he declares, should receive what belonged to his father. Isis reveals herself. Seth has judged his own claim. By his own words, the throne should belong to Horus. Still, the dispute continues. Horus and Seth compete by transforming themselves into hippopotamuses and plunging beneath the water. They are supposed to remain submerged for 3 months. Isis waits upon the bank with a harpoon. Unable to bear the danger to her son, she strikes. First, she hits Horus by mistake. He cries out, and she releases him. Then she strikes Seth, but Seth appeals to her as her brother. Isis hesitates and frees him. Horus becomes furious that his mother has shown mercy to the killer of Osiris. The conflict turns against Isis herself. The surviving tale moves through episodes of mutilation, restoration, trickery, humiliation, and magical transformation. Horus loses his eyes in one encounter. Hathor restores his sight. Seth attempts to prove dominance over Horus through a sexual act, but Isis helps her son reverse the trap. When Seth calls upon the evidence before the gathered gods, the proof answers from an impossible place and humiliates him instead. The story is far stranger than the simplified version in which Horus defeats Seth in a single heroic battle. Egyptian mythology did not always present its gods as calm, perfect beings. They could be jealous, confused, vindictive, clever, ridiculous. They experienced bodily injury and emotional humiliation. They required advice. Even the divine court could become trapped in endless disagreement. Eventually, Osiris sends a message from the underworld. He demands to know why his son has been denied justice for so long. He reminds the gods that every one of them will eventually enter his kingdom. The message carries weight. Horus is brought forward. The white crown is placed upon his head. He receives the throne of his father. The gods rejoice. Seth is not simply destroyed. In some traditions, he is given a place beside Rhea, where his enormous strength can be used against the serpent of chaos. The dangerous force is not removed from the universe. It is redirected. Horus and Seth could even be shown together, binding the plants of Upper and Lower Egypt around a central symbol of unity. The rivals become part of the same kingdom. Order does not always mean that chaos disappears. It can mean that opposing powers are brought into balance. Every Egyptian king inherited this unresolved tension. He was Horus, the rightful ruler who preserved Maat. But he also needed the strength of Seth to defeat enemies and control the dangerous edges of the world. The throne stood between cultivation and desert, mercy and violence, stability and force. The gods themselves contained these opposites. Perhaps that is why their stories could survive for thousands of years without becoming fixed. Each version emphasized a different truth. Horus won because he was the rightful heir. He won because Isis was clever. He won because Osiris demanded justice. He won because the court finally accepted what it had resisted for 80 years. But the myths also warn that the restoration of order can be slow. The gods may hesitate. The innocent may suffer. the rightful king may wait while the wrong ruler holds power. Justice does not always arrive quickly. Yet in the end, Horus stood upon the throne. The eye that had been injured was made whole. The kingdom that had been divided was joined again. And Seth, the force of the storm, was sent to defend the sun. He would be needed, because every night something waited beneath the horizon that even Ra could not face alone. Before we follow the sun into that darkness, there is another story of Ra's anger. A story in which the gods came frighteningly close to erasing humanity altogether. Ra had become old. Human beings saw his weakened body and began plotting against him. The sun god heard what they were saying. He called the gods into secret council. The divine beings gathered around him, while humanity remained unaware that its fate was being discussed. Ra asked what should be done. The gods advised him to release his eye. The eye of Ra was not simply the physical eye within the god's face. It was an extension of his power, often appearing as a goddess, capable of leaving him and acting independently. It could give life. It could protect. It could also become a weapon. Ra sent the goddess Hathor against the rebels. But as she entered the violence of her task, she became the raging lioness Sekhmet. Her name meant the powerful one. She hunted humanity across the land. The gentle goddess of music, love, celebration, and joy became almost unrecognizable beneath the fury of the sun. Sekhmet delighted in destruction. The blood upon the earth only intensified her rage. Ra watched. At first, the punishment had been his command. But the goddess no longer appeared willing to stop. If she continued, the human race would disappear. Ra changed his mind. Yet recalling the eye was not simple. The weapon he had released now possessed its own hunger. The gods prepared a plan. Thousands of jars of beer were brewed. Red pigment was mixed into the liquid until it resembled blood. Before dawn, the beer was poured across the land where Sekhmet would pass. It covered the ground like a shining red flood. The lioness arrived. She saw the liquid and believed it was blood. She drank. She continued drinking until the divine rage softened. The powerful goddess became intoxicated. Eventually, she could no longer hunt. She lay down and slept. When she awoke, humanity had been spared. In some tellings, she returned to the gentler nature of Hathor. The destroyer became the goddess of music, dancing, love, beauty, and celebration. The story contains an extraordinary transformation. The same divine force could produce terror and joy. The same sun that gave warmth to the fields could burn them. The same lioness that killed could protect her cubs. The same goddess associated with plague could also be called upon to heal disease. Egyptian deities were not divided neatly into good and evil. Power itself was dangerous. What mattered was its direction and balance. Sekhmet could defend the king against enemies. She could destroy those who threatened Maat. But if her rage exceeded its proper limit, order would collapse beneath the very force sent to preserve it. Egyptian kings attempted to calm her through ritual. Amenhotep III commissioned hundreds of statues of Sekhmet, many larger than life. Some scholars believe there may once have been more than 700, perhaps connected with daily rituals performed throughout the year. Rows of lion-headed goddesses occupied his vast temple complex. Each statue showed the same terrifying calm. Sekhmet sat or stood upright. A solar disk crowned her head. Her face displayed no obvious rage. That stillness may have made her more intimidating. This was violence under control, power waiting. The statues received prayers and offerings. The Egyptians did not honor Sekhmet because they loved destruction. They honored her because destructive forces could not simply be ignored. Disease, war, heat, and sudden death existed. They needed to be recognized, named, approached, and persuaded. A dangerous goddess might be the best protector against the danger she herself commanded. Festivals associated with Hathor and Sekhmet could include music, dancing, and heavy drinking. The celebration recalled the moment when beer saved humanity. Joy became a ritual memory of survival. Every cup repeated the red flood. Every song marked the return of the goddess from fury. Human beings remained upon the earth because the lioness had fallen asleep. But Ra no longer wished to rule among them. After the rebellion, the sun god withdrew into the sky. The goddess Nut took the form of a great celestial cow and lifted him away from the human world. The earth and heaven separated. The age in which gods walked openly among people came to an end. From then on, Ra crossed high above creation. During the day, he sailed through the visible sky. At sunset, he entered a region where no living human could follow. There, in the deepest hour of night, the serpent was waiting. Every sunset was dangerous. The sun did not simply vanish and wait beneath the horizon for morning. It entered the Duat. The Egyptian underworld was not only a kingdom of the dead, it was a hidden region through which the sun traveled every night. Royal tombs were covered with books describing this journey. The Amduat, whose title can be translated as "What is in the Underworld," divided the night into 12 hours. Each hour contained gates, caverns, rivers, gods, spirits, strange beings, and powers that existed nowhere in the daylight world. Ra entered this place aboard his night boat. His daytime form had aged as it crossed the sky. Now he traveled toward death. The boat carried a divine crew. Gods stood around Ra, guiding and defending him. Among them could be Seth, whose violent strength became useful against the enemies of creation. The dead hoped to join the voyage. If they knew the names of the gates, beings, and hidden regions, they too might travel safely through the darkness. At the deepest point of the night waited Apep. The name is also rendered as Apophis. He was the enormous serpent of chaos. Unlike many Egyptian gods, Apep did not represent a dangerous force that could be given a useful place within cosmic order. He was the refusal of order itself. His goal was not to rule creation. It was to stop it. Apep attempted to block the solar boat. He could swallow the waters of the underworld, leaving the vessel stranded. He could attack the sun directly. His coils stretched across the hidden landscape. If he succeeded, Ra would not rise. The morning would never arrive. Time would end. The Nile would no longer flow. The dead would not be renewed. Life itself would lose the rhythm that allowed it to continue. Each night, the gods fought him. Spears and knives pierced the serpent. Ropes bound his body. Divine beings cut, burned, crushed, and dismembered him. A great cat, sometimes representing Ra, could be shown slicing through the serpent beneath a sacred tree. But Apep was never killed permanently. He returned the following night. Chaos could be defeated. It could not be erased forever. Egyptian priests participated in this battle from the world above. Ritual texts described the overthrowing of Apep. A model or image of the serpent might be spat upon, trampled, stabbed, burned, or destroyed. His name could be written and then damaged. These acts were not symbolic theater without consequence. They helped maintain the universe. The battle beneath the horizon required support from temples upon the earth. This belief placed human ritual within a cosmic struggle. A priest rising before dawn was not merely repeating an old ceremony. He was helping the sun survive. Every ordinary morning proved that the gods and their human allies had succeeded again. Apep had failed. The boat had continued. Near the final hours of night, Ra encountered Osiris, the sun god carrying the power of light and motion, united with the silent ruler of the dead. Ra became the soul. Osiris became the body. Together they generated renewal. The aging sun transformed. At dawn, it could emerge as Khipri, the scarab associated with becoming and rebirth. The Egyptians watched scarab beetles pushing round balls across the ground and saw an image of the solar disk being moved into the sky. The small creature became a form of the morning sun. This made every sunrise the end of an unseen adventure. While the world slept, the sun had passed through gates. The dead had awakened. Serpents had been cut apart. Gods had pulled the solar boat through darkness. Ra had joined with Osiris and become young again. The eastern horizon reddened. Birds began calling beside the Nile. Temple doors opened. People rose from their beds believing morning had returned naturally. But behind that ordinary light was a victory. Creation had almost stopped. The serpent had almost closed its coils. The sun rose because order had been defended one more time. And inside the temples, priests prepared to awaken the gods who had helped save it. An Egyptian temple was not built primarily to hold a congregation. Most people would never enter its deepest rooms. The building was a house for a god. At its center was the sanctuary. The route toward it passed through monumental gateways, open courts, columned halls, and increasingly restricted chambers. As a priest moved inward, the ceilings could become lower. The floors could rise. The light diminished. The noise of the outside world disappeared. At the center stood a shrine. Inside it was the cult statue. The image might be surprisingly small compared with the enormous temple surrounding it. It could be made from wood, stone, or metal. Some divine statues were covered in gold or decorated with precious materials. To modern eyes, it was an artwork. To those who served it, the statue was a body prepared for divine presence. The god was not trapped inside it. The deity still existed across the sky, landscape, myths, animals, and invisible world. But through ritual, part of that divine being could inhabit the image. Each morning, before sunrise or shortly afterward, the temple began to wake. The officiating priest entered after ritual purification. He had washed. His clothing was clean. Certain foods and activities had been avoided. Incense helped cleanse the space. The sanctuary remained sealed. The priest broke the clay seal or loosened the fastening upon the shrine. The doors opened. The face of the god appeared within the darkness. The priest greeted the deity, or he might prostrate himself. Incense was burned. The previous day's clothing and ornaments were removed. The statue was washed, purified, anointed with oils, dressed in fresh linen, and adorned. Cosmetics could be applied. Crowns, collars, and jewelry transformed the small figure into the ruler of the sacred world. Food was presented. Bread, beer, meat, fruit, vegetables, wine, cakes, flowers. The god did not consume the offerings physically. The divine essence was believed to receive what it required. Afterward, the food could be redistributed through the temple system. and support priests, workers, and others connected with the institution. The meal crossed between worlds. Its invisible part sustained the god. Its physical part returned to humans. The priest performed the ritual as a representative of the pharaoh. Temple walls usually showed the king making offerings, even though the daily work was performed by priests across the country. The pharaoh remained, in theory, the one who stood between Egypt and the gods. He gave Maat to the deities. They returned life, stability, and power to the kingdom. This exchange had to continue. The gods maintained creation. Egypt maintained the gods. At the end of the ritual, the statue was returned to its shrine. The doors closed. The sanctuary was sealed. The priest withdrew carefully, sometimes sweeping away his footprints as he left. The god returned to darkness. Outside, ordinary people lived near temples, whose deepest mysteries they could not see. They brought offerings to accessible areas. They prayed before statues placed beyond the sanctuary. They left written appeals. They waited for festivals. During great processions, the god came out. The divine statue was placed inside a shrine mounted upon a ceremonial boat. Priests carried it upon their shoulders. The image itself might remain hidden behind curtains and doors, but its presence moved through the streets. Crowds gathered. Music sounded. Incense rose. People called out questions. The movement of the divine boat could be interpreted as an answer. A god normally concealed within the temple had entered the sunlight. The boundary between sacred and ordinary space temporarily opened. For most of the year, however, the divine image remained inside. Day after day, generation after generation, priests entered the sanctuary and repeated the ritual. Kingdoms changed. New pharaohs carved their names over the names of older rulers. Foreign armies entered Egypt. Languages evolved. Temples gained wealth, lost power, and were repaired. But inside the hidden room, the god was awakened, washed, dressed, fed, and returned to darkness. The repetition was not empty. Repetition was how the universe survived. The Nile flooded more than once. The sun rose more than once. Horus defeated Seth more than once. Ra passed through the underworld more than once. Creation was not an event completed in the distant past. It was something that had to be renewed. Every dawn was the first dawn. Every temple was the first mound rising from the primeval water. Every offering helped restore the relationship between gods and humans. This may be the quiet heart of ancient Egyptian religion. Behind its enormous statues and terrifying myths was an endless routine of care. The gods were powerful enough to move the sun. Yet they were awakened each morning. They were washed. They were clothed. They were offered breakfast. Then the shrine closed, and the temple became silent again. Outside, sunlight reached the Nile. Farmers entered the fields. Boats moved with the current. Children played beside homes, protected by small images of gods. And deep inside the temple, beyond walls covered with names and offerings, eternity waited in the dark for morning to come again. The ancient Egyptians did not spend their lives walking between pyramids. Most people never entered a royal tomb. Many may never have seen the Great Pyramid at all. Their Egypt was smaller and more immediate. It was the room where bread was rising, the courtyard where grain was ground, the shaded doorway where someone sat repairing a sandal, the roof where a family gathered after sunset, when the air finally began to cool. Most Egyptian homes were built from mud brick. The builders mixed Nile mud with plant material, pressed it into rectangular molds, and allowed the bricks to dry beneath the sun. Stone was expensive and difficult to work. It was reserved mainly for monuments intended to outlast generations. Mud brick belonged to the living. It was practical, available, and surprisingly effective in the Egyptian climate. Thick walls helped soften the heat of the day and preserve warmth when desert temperatures fell after sunset. But mud brick had a weakness: water. The same river that sustained Egypt could slowly destroy the homes built beside it. Heavy rain, although uncommon in many regions, could damage walls. Floodwater could dissolve foundations. Buildings required repair, replacement, and constant attention. This is one reason the houses of ordinary Egyptians have often vanished, while their stone tombs remain. The Egyptians built eternity from stone. They built daily life from earth. A modest home might contain several small rooms arranged in a row. Wealthier houses could include courtyards, storage spaces, reception rooms, servants' quarters, gardens, pools, workshops, and private shrines. Light entered through doorways and small openings placed high in the walls. Windows were limited, partly to keep out heat, dust, and glare. The interior could remain cool and dim even beneath the white Egyptian sun. Furniture was valuable. Wood suitable for fine carpentry was scarce in much of Egypt and was sometimes imported from distant regions. A well-made bed, chest, chair, or stool might be repaired and passed through a family. Many people sat upon low stools, mats, or the floor. Objects were stored inside baskets, pottery vessels, and wooden boxes. The wealth of a household could sometimes be measured by how many useful things it was able to keep. The day began early. Grain had to be ground by hand between stones. The flour was mixed into dough and baked into bread, one of the foundations of the Egyptian diet. Beer was also consumed widely, although it differed from many modern beers and could be thick, nutritious, and closely connected with bread making. Onions, garlic, dates, figs, lentils, fish, and vegetables appeared in meals according to availability and status. The wealthy had greater access to meat, wine, elaborate dishes, and imported luxuries. The poor lived closer to hunger. Paintings inside elite tombs show tables overflowing with food, but these were visions of abundance prepared for eternity. They do not prove that every Egyptian ate well. The reality of life depended upon the flood, the harvest, taxation, work, health, family, and luck. Inside the home, religion was never far away. Small figures of protective deities might stand in niches. Bes, with his unusual face, watched over childbirth, children, music, and the household. Taweret, shown with the heavy body of a pregnant hippopotamus, offered protection to mothers and infants. These gods rarely occupied the center of enormous state temples, but they stood close to ordinary fear. A difficult birth, a sick child, a nightmare, a snake entering the house, the danger of illness in the night. The household gods belonged beside the bed. The flat roof could become another living space. People worked there, dried food, stored objects, slept during hot weather, or looked out across neighboring roofs. After dark, the village changed. Cooking smoke thinned. Oil lamps flickered within doorways. Voices crossed the narrow streets. Beyond the final walls lay the desert, and above it stretched the same stars that guided priests, kings, and the dead. The people beneath them were not symbols carved into temple walls. They complained about work, They borrowed clothing. They accused neighbors of stealing tools. They fell in love with people who did not love them back. They worried about their children and tried to make their homes comfortable. The monuments tell us what Egypt wanted eternity to remember. The houses reveal what Egypt needed in order to reach tomorrow. And when the morning came, the inhabitants prepared themselves carefully. They washed, they dressed in linen, they lined their eyes, they covered their skin with oils. Because in ancient Egypt, scent and beauty were not merely luxuries. They were forms of protection against a harsh and dusty world. We cannot truly know ancient Egypt without imagining its smells: the river and its mud, fish drying near the shore, bread baking inside clay ovens, smoke from cooking fires, animals gathered in courtyards, sweat beneath the midday sun, flowers floating in bowls, incense burning in the darkness of a temple, perfumed oil warming slowly upon human skin. Egyptian paintings are silent and scentless, yet the world they depict would have been filled with powerful aromas. Cleanliness mattered. People bathed in the river, in pools, or using water poured from basins and jars. Natron, a naturally occurring salt mixture, could be used in cleaning, ritual purification, and mummification. Oils and ointments protected the skin from dryness. The same climate that preserved ancient bodies could be difficult for the living. Wind, dust, heat, insects, and intense sunlight touched nearly every exposed surface. Both men and women wore cosmetics. Dark eye paint could be made using minerals such as galena, while green pigment was often connected with malachite. The lines around the eyes created one of the most recognizable appearances in Egyptian art. They may have reduced glare and offered some physical protection around the eye, although they also carried social, aesthetic, and religious meaning. The eye itself was powerful. The restored eye of Horus symbolized healing and wholeness. To outline the human eye was therefore not merely to decorate it. Beauty could overlap with protection. Wigs were worn by some Egyptians, especially members of wealthier society. Human hair and plant fibers could be shaped into carefully arranged styles. Some people shaved or closely cropped their natural hair, which may have made hygiene easier in a hot climate where lice were a persistent problem. A wig could then be placed over the head for public appearance, ceremony, or celebration. Tomb paintings show hairstyles arranged with extraordinary precision. Braids fall across shoulders. Curls are layered into geometric shapes. Children may be shown with a distinctive sidelock. Hair could communicate age, role, and status. Linen formed the foundation of Egyptian clothing. The fibers came from flax plants grown beside the Nile. Skilled workers transformed them into thread and cloth, sometimes producing fabric of astonishing fineness. Simple garments could be practical and lightly wrapped. Elite clothing could become pleated, transparent, layered, and ceremonial. White linen carried associations with cleanliness and sacred purity. Yet it was never easy to keep anything white in a land of dust, mud, smoke, oil, and constant labor. Laundry was work. Perfume offered another form of transformation. Egyptian perfumers combined oils and fats with flowers, resins, spices, woods, and other aromatic substances. The exact recipes varied, and many have been lost. Ingredients might arrive through trade from regions far beyond the Nile Valley. Frankincense and myrrh carried religious importance as well as fragrance. Lotus flowers appeared repeatedly in banquets and funerary art. Guests are shown holding blossoms close to their faces, surrounded by music, drink, conversation, and scent. Perfumed substances were offered to gods. They were applied to statues. They were placed among the dead. They were used in life during celebration, intimacy, and ritual. In Egyptian art, banquet guests are sometimes shown with pale cones resting upon their heads. For many years, these were interpreted as lumps of scented fat that slowly melted through the hair and clothing. The subject remains debated, and surviving physical examples have complicated the older explanation. Whatever their precise nature, the images connect fragrance with festivity and altered experience. A celebration was not complete when it could only be seen. It had to fill the air. Music played, wine was poured, flowers opened, perfume moved invisibly through the room. Scent was temporary, but it could awaken memory with astonishing force. A particular resin might recall a temple. A flower might recall a lover. An oil might remain upon clothing after the person who wore it had gone. The Egyptians spent enormous effort attempting to preserve bodies, names, and images. But some of the most powerful parts of human life could never be carved into stone. The warmth of skin, the sound of laughter, the smell of a familiar person entering the room. Those things disappeared. Yet on broken pieces of limestone and pottery, the Egyptians preserved something almost as fragile. They preserved the words of people falling in love. The lover is waiting, perhaps beside a garden, perhaps near the river, perhaps within a room whose walls have long since disappeared. We do not know the person's name. We do not know whether the beloved ever arrived, but the feeling remains. Ancient Egyptian love poems survive on papyrus and upon ostraca, inexpensive fragments of limestone or broken pottery used as convenient writing surfaces. These were the notepads of the ancient world. Workers recorded deliveries upon them. Scribes practiced handwriting. Neighbors wrote accusations. Students copied literature. And sometimes someone wrote a love song. The poems are surprisingly intimate. The speakers call their lovers brother and sister, terms of affection that did not necessarily describe a biological relationship. They speak of longing so intense that ordinary movement becomes difficult. A lover waits outside a door. A young person imagines crossing a river despite danger. Someone becomes ill from desire and believes that seeing the beloved would restore health. The language can be playful, frustrated, sensual, and direct. These are not the distant declarations of kings marrying for political power. They belong to a more private world. A person worries that others will notice where they are going. Someone hopes to meet secretly. Someone praises the voice, eyes, movements, or beauty of another. Thousands of years later, the emotions require little explanation. Love disturbs sleep. Absence makes time move slowly. The smallest sign of affection becomes enormous. The beloved appears unlike anyone else in the world. The survival of these poems is almost accidental. A stone monument was created to last. An ostracon was often created because someone needed a disposable surface. Many were thrown away. At places like Deir el Medina, discarded fragments accumulated in wells, rubbish deposits, and abandoned spaces. What one person considered unimportant became invaluable to the future. The texts reveal a society filled with writing, although literacy was never universal. Professional scribes occupied an important position, because written language could control property, taxation, administration, religion, and memory. A scribe could record what had been delivered, who had worked, who owed grain, and who had made a complaint. Writing gave words a body. A spoken accusation vanished into air. A written accusation could travel to an official. Students learned by copying older texts. They repeated sayings, model letters, hymns, poems, and instructions from generations before them. Some exercises contain mistakes. A teacher corrected poor work. A student struggled with signs. The elegant literature now preserved in museums may sometimes survive through the hand of someone practicing. Ancient graffiti also appears throughout Egypt. Visitors wrote their names upon monuments. Scribes left messages in sacred places. People recorded that they had come to see a remarkable building. These inscriptions are not always acts of mindless damage in the modern sense. Some were devotional, some were commemorative. Some connected the visitor with an ancient and powerful place. An Egyptian, standing before a monument built 1,000 years earlier, could feel the same desire modern visitors feel. I was here. I saw this. Remember that I existed. The names of ordinary people appear beside royal scenes. A brief human mark rests beneath a colossal god. Even official records can become unexpectedly personal. A worker explains why he missed his duties. Another complains of sickness. Someone says that a family member required care. Tools disappear. Arguments move between neighbors. A man accused of stealing insists he is innocent. A rejected suitor attempts to bring goods to a prospective bride's house and is apparently turned away again. The distance of 3,000 years collapses. These were not people eternally posing in profile. They were embarrassed, jealous, lazy, diligent, generous, dishonest, lonely, in love. One surviving ostracon carries lines of a love song beside a prayer. Sacred desire and human desire occupy the same piece of broken stone. Perhaps they were never entirely separate. The Egyptians believed words could activate magic, preserve the dead, awaken gods, and defend the sun against chaos. But words could also perform a smaller miracle. They could allow a feeling to outlive the person who felt it. The garden has vanished. The doorway has fallen. The river has changed its course. The lover and the beloved are nameless. Yet somewhere within the surviving lines, one of them is still waiting. And beside the people of Egypt, sometimes beneath their chairs and sometimes within their tombs, waited the animals who shared their homes. In Egyptian tomb paintings, small animals often appear beneath chairs. A cat sits quietly below its owner. A dog waits beside a table. A monkey reaches toward food. The placement brings them close to the human figure, within the private space of the family. Some animals carried religious or symbolic meaning, but some were also companions. Dogs guarded homes, accompanied hunters, and lived closely with people. They were given names. Some names described speed, color, behavior, or affection. Images show lean hunting dogs with pointed ears and curled tails, as well as other body types, suggesting that Egyptians recognized and bred different kinds of dogs. A dog might accompany its owner into eternity, represented upon the tomb wall even when its body was buried elsewhere. Cats entered Egyptian life partly because they were useful. Grain stores attracted mice and rats. Snakes could enter houses and fields. A skilled small predator offered protection. Over time, cats became closely connected with domestic life and with goddesses such as Bastet. Their image carried softness and danger at once. A cat could sleep beneath a chair, then kill with remarkable speed. Egyptian artists captured this dual nature. In the famous hunting scene from the tomb chapel of Nebamun, a cat joins its owner in the marshes. Birds explode from the papyrus plants, while the cat grasps them with claws and teeth. The animal may be an active participant in the hunt, a symbolic figure, or both. Its eye is decorated in a way that gives it a strange intensity. It appears more than domestic. It becomes part of the order imposed upon the chaotic marsh. Monkeys also lived in some Egyptian households, especially among the wealthy. They appear tethered beneath chairs, gathering fruit, or entertaining banquet guests. Gazelles, geese, and other animals could also exist within the human sphere. The boundary between pet, working animal, sacred animal, food source, and symbol was not always fixed. An individual creature could occupy several of these roles. Egyptians sometimes mummified animals they valued. A pet might be preserved and placed near its owner. An inscription or image could maintain the bond. Yet it is difficult to determine the emotional history behind every animal burial. Some were companions, some were sacred manifestations, some were offerings raised in enormous numbers. Modern viewers naturally search for affection, but Egyptian relationships with animals were shaped by religion, economy, labor, danger, and food as well as love. Still, grief leaves traces. A carefully prepared animal body required time and expense. A dog shown beneath its owner's chair was placed there deliberately. A name carved beside an animal prevented it from becoming anonymous. Later writers claimed that Egyptians displayed intense mourning when household cats died. Although these accounts came from outsiders and should not be treated as a universal description of every Egyptian family. What can be said with greater certainty is that animals mattered deeply. Egyptian gods revealed themselves through animal forms because animals possessed abilities humans did not. Birds entered the sky, fish survived beneath the water, snakes vanished into the ground and returned. Scarabs seemed to emerge from the earth. Crocodiles existed between river and land. Cats moved through darkness with eyes that caught the light. To live beside animals was to live beside other ways of experiencing the universe. A human being could look into the eyes of a cat and see a familiar creature, a hunter, a protector, and an echo of the divine. When the person died, the image of the animal followed. Together they entered the tomb, but the tomb was not always a safe place. By the end of the New Kingdom, the people who built and guarded the royal necropolis were living through shortages and political decline. At night, some of them began looking toward the sealed doors in the cliffs. Behind those doors lay more wealth than most Egyptians could imagine. The royal tomb was designed as an eternal fortress. Its entrance was hidden. Its corridors descended into rock. Its doors were sealed. Spells protected the chambers. Guards watched the valley. The dead king was surrounded by gods. None of it was enough. Ancient tomb robbery began almost as soon as valuable objects were placed among the dead. A burial containing gold, jewelry, imported oils, fine linen, furniture, and precious stone created an irresistible concentration of wealth. The robbers did not need to believe the dead were powerless. They only needed to believe the risk was worth taking. By the later years of the New Kingdom, Egypt was under enormous strain. Royal authority weakened. Workers' rations were delayed. Officials competed for power. The systems responsible for guarding the dead became vulnerable to the same corruption affecting the living. The people best equipped to enter a tomb were often the people who understood how it had been built. Stonecutters knew where corridors might lie. Workmen knew which marks concealed a doorway. Officials knew when guards were absent. Metal workers knew how to divide and melt stolen gold. A successful robbery required knowledge, tools, silence, transportation, and buyers willing to accept objects that could only have come from a grave. The surviving tomb robbery papyri record investigations conducted when accusations became impossible to ignore. Officials inspected tombs. Witnesses were questioned. Suspects were beaten during interrogation. A fact recorded with disturbing directness. Men gave confessions, withdrew them, accused others, and attempted to survive a system in which guilt and punishment could become tangled with political rivalry. One group described entering a royal burial and finding the bodies of the king and queen. They stripped precious materials from the mummies, collected vessels and ornaments, then divided the treasure among themselves. The words are shocking because they reduce the sacred machinery of royal eternity to a criminal inventory. Gold became weight, coffins became wood, amulets became objects to sell. The king became a body containing valuables. Not every accusation was true. Some tombs reported as robbed were found intact. Officials fought over the results of inspections. The papyri reveal not a simple conflict between honest guards and evil thieves, but a damaged institution filled with fear, rivalry, and distrust. Even those assigned to protect the necropolis might be involved. The royal dead were becoming impossible to defend in their original tombs. Egyptian priests eventually made an extraordinary decision. They moved them. Kings who had once rested separately in magnificent hidden chambers were removed, rewrapped, identified, and gathered together in secret caches. Some had already been damaged. Others had lost most of their burial equipment. Priests wrote notes upon wrappings and coffins, recording restoration or relocation. The goal was no longer to preserve the grandeur of the original funeral. It was to save what remained of the body. Rameses the Great was moved. Seti I was moved. Thutmose III was moved. The rulers who had commanded armies and covered Egypt with monuments were carried through the darkness by priests attempting to hide them from thieves. Eventually, many royal mummies were placed together in a tomb near Deir el-Bahri. The entrance was concealed. The dead kings waited in crowded silence. Their individual tombs stood empty or broken in the Valley of the Kings. Centuries passed before the cache became known to local people and eventually to authorities in the 19th century. When the mummies were removed, some witnesses described an eerie journey along the Nile. The bodies of Egypt's ancient rulers traveled by boat once more, watched by modern villagers standing along the banks. The royal dead had failed to remain in their palaces of eternity. Yet they survived because someone disturbed them. Their original treasures were gone. Their names had endured. Their bodies, carried from tomb to tomb, still existed. The robbery papyri exposed the collapse of royal certainty. The tomb could be opened. The mummy could be stripped. The sacred guardian could accept a bribe. Even eternity depended upon wages being paid and doors being watched. And while investigators questioned thieves in the necropolis, a far more dangerous conspiracy was moving through the royal household. Its target was not a dead king. It was a living one. Ramesses III wanted to be remembered as a great warrior king. His monuments show victories over foreign enemies. His temple at Medinet Habu rises like a stone fortress upon the western bank of Thebes. Its walls display battles, captives, gods, festivals, and the pharaoh standing above disorder. But the enemy who finally reached Ramesses did not come from beyond Egypt. The conspiracy formed within the royal household. One of the king's secondary wives, Tia, wanted her son to inherit the throne. The prince is known to us as Pentawa, although that may not have been his original name. Ramesses had selected another son as successor, the future Ramesses IV. Changing the succession required more than persuasion. The conspirators needed to remove the king. Surviving judicial papyri describe a network involving members of the royal household, officials, servants, military figures, and individuals capable of carrying messages beyond restricted palace spaces. The plot appears to have included plans to stir rebellion. Magic was also involved. Figures and writings were created with the intention of weakening guards or protecting conspirators. To the Egyptians, this was not an imaginary side plot. Magical action could be prosecuted as part of the crime. Words and images were believed capable of producing real effects. The preserved trial documents speak in cautious language. They describe the conspirators' crimes, the courts established to judge them, and the punishments that followed. Some condemned men were allowed or forced to take their own lives. Others received physical punishment. Several defendants were referred to by altered, degrading names, as though even the written record had been designed to attack their identities. For centuries, one question remained uncertain. Did the conspiracy actually kill Ramesses? The official language did not clearly announce the murder of the pharaoh. Such an admission would have been politically and religiously devastating. The king was the defender of Maat. He was protected by the gods. To state plainly that conspirators had cut him down inside his own household would reveal a collapse at the center of the kingdom. The mummy appeared to offer no easy answer. Thick layers of linen covered the neck. The body had been prepared with great care. Then modern medical imaging looked beneath the wrappings. Computed tomography revealed a deep wound across the throat. The injury cut through vital structures and reached close to the spine. It would have been rapidly fatal. The royal coup had probably succeeded in killing its target, but it failed to control what followed. The chosen heir became Ramesses IV. The conspirators were tried. Pentawa did not become king. A damaged and unusually prepared male mummy has been proposed as the prince, partly because genetic testing indicated a close paternal relationship with Ramesses III. But the identification is not absolutely certain. The final moments inside the palace remain hidden. We do not know exactly who held the blade. We do not know whether the king understood what was happening. We do not know how many attackers were present, or whether other injuries contributed to his death. There may have been chaos behind closed doors, while festival celebrations continued elsewhere. A ruler portrayed as invincible upon temple walls died through a wound his artists would never show. The embalmers attempted to repair the damage. They covered the neck with thick linen. A protective Eye of Horus amulet was placed within the wound, as though the restored divine eye might heal what violence had opened. The king could not be returned to life, but his body could still be made whole for eternity. Ramesses III entered his tomb with the conspiracy hidden beneath his wrappings. The official records transformed murder into controlled judgment. The temple walls continued showing victory. For more than 3,000 years, the pharaoh kept his final wound concealed. Then a machine looked through the linen. The secret appeared as a dark opening across the throat. The king who defeated armies had been killed from within. His death marked more than a palace tragedy. Egypt's great imperial age was fading. The following centuries brought fragmentation, foreign rule, recovery, and conquest. New peoples entered Egypt. Old gods absorbed foreign names. Greek traders sailed into the Nile Delta through a port city filled with ships and temples. Then the ground beneath that city began to fail. For centuries, the city existed mostly as a name. Greek writers called it Herakleion. Egyptian texts called it Thonis. At one time, scholars wondered whether these were two different places. They were the same city. Thonis Herakleion stood near the mouth of the Nile, where river water entered the Mediterranean. Before Alexandria rose to greatness, ships arriving from the Greek world passed through this gateway. Goods were inspected. Taxes and customs duties were collected. Sailors entered canals crowded with vessels. Merchants exchanged metal, grain, oil, pottery, wine, wood, perfume, and information. The city was not simply a marketplace. It was also sacred. A major temple of Amun stood there. Festivals connected the city with nearby Canopus and with myths of Osiris. Priests, sailors, officials, foreigners, and residents moved among quays and sacred buildings. Egyptian and Greek cultures met there long before either could be separated neatly from the other. Then the city disappeared beneath the water. There was probably no single dramatic night in which the entire place vanished at once. The land of the Nile Delta is unstable. It is formed from sediments carried and deposited by the river. Changes in water level, earthquakes, soil failure, subsidence, and the gradual weakening of waterlogged ground all contributed to the loss of coastal settlements. Sections of Thonis Herakleion collapsed. The sea advanced. Buildings sank into mud. By the medieval period, much of the city lay several meters beneath Abukir Bay. The canals filled. The temples fell. Stone statues entered the water. Ships settled into the sediment. The port that had once controlled entry into Egypt vanished from maps and memory. Underwater researchers eventually began surveying the bay with modern instruments. The seafloor did not resemble a standing city waiting intact beneath clear water. It was buried, scattered, and concealed beneath layers of sediment. Archaeologists mapped structures through limited visibility. Divers moved carefully above the remains. Objects appeared where ordinary expectations said they should not exist. A colossal statue lay upon the bottom. A stone monument rose from the mud. Gold coins, jewelry, ritual objects, anchors, pottery, and weapons emerged. More than 70 ancient vessels have been identified in the harbor area, preserving evidence of shipbuilding traditions and the enormous amount of traffic that once passed through the city. Inscriptions helped confirm the city's identity. The place called Thonis in Egyptian sources, and Herakleion by Greek writers was revealed as one connected port. A historical confusion that had lasted for centuries was resolved underwater. The discoveries also restored the city's soundless crowds. A bronze object had once been held. A coin had passed between hands. An anchor had dropped from a ship whose crew expected to raise it again. A votive offering had been carried toward a god. A sailor had entered the harbor after surviving the open sea. Then every individual life disappeared, while the city remained below. Underwater archaeology reverses the ordinary experience of ruins. On land, stone rises from the ground. At Thonis Heracleion, the past appears slowly from darkness and mud. A diver may see the outline of a face where no face should be. A hand brushes sediment from a carved name. The water that erased the city also protected parts of it from later building, farming, and theft. The lost port became a sealed archive of contact between worlds. Egyptian gods watched Greek ships arrive. Foreign merchants passed temples older than their own cities. Languages mixed along the waterfront. The city prospered because it stood between river and sea. It vanished for the same reason. By the time Cleopatra ruled Egypt, Alexandria had become the great Mediterranean capital. Its palace quarter faced the water. Its lighthouse marked the coast. Its libraries and temples gathered knowledge from across the known world. But Alexandria also stood upon uncertain ground. Parts of Cleopatra's city would eventually sink beneath the sea as well. Before that happened, the queen would fight the most powerful state in the Mediterranean for the survival of Egypt. Cleopatra was born into a dynasty that was Egyptian and foreign at the same time. Her family descended from Ptolemy, one of the Macedonian Greek generals who took control of Egypt after the death of Alexander the Great. For nearly 3 centuries, the Ptolemies ruled from Alexandria. They spoke Greek. They participated in the politics of the Mediterranean. They married within their own family. And they presented themselves to Egypt as pharaohs. Temple walls showed Ptolemaic rulers making offerings to ancient gods in the traditional manner. Priests carved their names inside royal cartouches. The images appeared continuous with thousands of years of kingship, even while the court belonged to a Hellenistic world transformed by Alexander. Cleopatra VII inherited a kingdom under pressure. Rome's influence had become impossible to escape. Her father depended heavily upon Roman support. After his death, Cleopatra ruled with her younger brother Ptolemy XIII, whom she also married according to dynastic custom. The arrangement collapsed into conflict. Cleopatra was driven from Alexandria and gathered forces outside Egypt. Then Julius Caesar arrived. He entered a dispute that was both a family struggle and a battle for control of one of the richest kingdoms in the Mediterranean. The famous story says Cleopatra was secretly carried to Caesar, wrapped inside a carpet. The earliest account describes something closer to a bedding sack, and the details may have been dramatized over time. What matters is that Cleopatra gained access to Caesar while her position was extremely dangerous. She persuaded the most powerful Roman present in Egypt to support her claim. War followed in Alexandria. Ptolemy XIII died. Cleopatra returned to the throne beside another younger brother, and later ruled with her son Caesarion, whom she presented as the child of Julius Caesar. Cleopatra was not powerful merely because Roman men found her attractive. That interpretation was useful to her enemies. It transformed a multilingual, politically skilled monarch into a dangerous seductress and made Roman conflict appear to be the result of female temptation. Ancient writers themselves often repeated hostile propaganda created after her defeat. The queen ruled through intelligence, performance, wealth, religion, diplomacy, and calculated risk. She appeared as the goddess Isis. She issued coins bearing her own face. She controlled Egypt's resources. She understood that royal presence could be constructed as carefully as any temple image. After Caesar was assassinated, the Roman world divided again. Cleopatra formed an alliance with Mark Antony. Their political and personal relationship produced children and connected Egypt with Antony's control of Rome's eastern territories. In Alexandria, they created a royal court that appeared magnificently separate from the increasingly dominant power of Octavian in the West. Octavian understood the danger. He also understood the value of controlling the story. Rather than present the coming war simply as another Roman civil conflict, his propaganda focused upon Cleopatra. Antony was portrayed as a Roman, corrupted by an Eastern queen. Egypt became exotic, wealthy, excessive, and threatening. The struggle could be described as Rome defending itself against a foreign monarch, rather than Romans fighting Romans. The decisive confrontation came near Actium in 31 BCE. The fleets of Antony and Cleopatra faced the forces of Octavian. The battle ended with their withdrawal and the collapse of their position. They returned to Egypt. The following year, Octavian entered Alexandria. Antony died after receiving false information that Cleopatra was already dead. Ancient accounts describe him being brought to her and dying in her presence. Cleopatra attempted to negotiate. She may have hoped to preserve the throne for her children, or avoid being displayed in a Roman triumph. When she understood that Octavian intended to take her to Rome, she chose death. Exactly how Cleopatra died remains uncertain. The famous image of a venomous snake hidden inside a basket has endured for centuries. Ancient sources offered several possibilities, including poison. No surviving evidence allows the final method to be confirmed. The uncertainty has become part of her legend. The last scene is repeatedly imagined. A royal chamber, the queen dressed in ceremonial clothing, attendants beside her, a snake moving across the floor. But history gives us silence. After Cleopatra's death, Caesarion was captured and killed. Her children with Antony were taken to Rome. Egypt became a province under Octavian, soon to be called Augustus. The Ptolemaic kingdom ended. Yet ancient Egypt did not suddenly disappear in the year 30 BCE. Temples remained active. Priests continued performing rituals. Egyptian language and writing survived. Roman emperors could be represented upon Egyptian temple walls, wearing pharaonic crowns and presenting offerings to the gods. The institution of the pharaoh had lost political independence, but its sacred image continued. Cleopatra was therefore both an ending and part of a longer transformation. She was not descended from the builders of the Great Pyramid. She ruled a multilingual Mediterranean kingdom shaped by Macedonian conquest, Egyptian religion, Greek culture, and Roman power. Yet when she entered a temple, priests could greet her as a pharaoh. When her image appeared beside Isis, she joined a tradition older than nearly every political state around her. Cleopatra fought to preserve her throne, her children, her dynasty, and Egypt's place as an independent power. She lost. Octavian controlled the surviving account. Egypt became the personal prize of the Roman emperor. The queen was reduced to a warning about luxury and uncontrolled female power. But the propaganda did not fully succeed. Cleopatra remained more famous than the ruler who defeated her. Her palace sank beneath the water. Her tomb has never been securely identified. Her body has not been found. Her appearance remains debated. Her final hours cannot be reconstructed with certainty. Nearly everything physical about her has slipped away. What remains is a mind visible through political decisions and the immense shadow cast by her enemies' fear. The last queen of Ptolemaic Egypt became larger in memory than she had been in life. After her death, the temples continued speaking. Their walls still carried the names of gods and kings, but fewer people could understand them. The final disappearance of ancient Egypt would not come when its queen died. It would come quietly, centuries later, when the last readers of its sacred writing vanished. For most of Egyptian history, the walls could speak. A trained reader looked at the carved figures and heard names. Birds, eyes, hands, snakes, water lines, seated people, plants, tools, and animals formed a writing system of extraordinary flexibility. Some signs represented complete words. Some represented sounds. Others helped clarify meaning. The images could face left or right. They could be arranged vertically or horizontally. They could be balanced inside elegant visual groups, so the writing became part of the architecture. Hieroglyphs were never simply mysterious pictures. They recorded a language, but the most formal writing did not remain the everyday script of every period. Scribes developed faster handwritten forms. Hieratic served religious, literary, and administrative purposes. Demotic became increasingly important in daily and legal writing during later periods. After Alexander's conquest, Greek spread through government and urban society. Later, Egyptian Christians wrote the Egyptian language largely with the Greek alphabet, adding several signs taken from Demotic. This stage of the language is called Coptic. The spoken language changed. The old temple system weakened. Christianity expanded. Traditional cults lost financial and political support. Temples closed or were transformed. Priestly communities that had preserved the knowledge of hieroglyphic writing disappeared. At Philae, an island sanctuary of Isis near Egypt's southern frontier, the ancient tradition survived unusually late. Priests and worshippers continued rituals there after many other temples had fallen silent. The last securely dated hieroglyphic inscription was carved at Philae in the year 394 of the Common Era. It was not a grand royal proclamation. It was a small piece of devotional graffiti. The tradition that had decorated pyramids, coffins, obelisks, and temple walls for more than 3,000 years ended with a visitor leaving a final sacred mark. No one present could have known it would be the last dated example. Perhaps they assumed another inscription would follow. Another priest would learn the signs. Another festival would carry Isis from her sanctuary. But knowledge can disappear, one person at a time. A teacher dies without a student. A ritual is performed less often. A symbol once encountered daily becomes something seen only upon an old wall. The pronunciation changes. The explanation is forgotten. Eventually, people stand before the writing and know that it means something, but cannot hear the language within it. The temples remained covered with words. The words became silent. For centuries, travelers attempted to understand them. Some believed each hieroglyph contained a complete philosophical mystery. Others treated the script as purely symbolic. The picture-like signs encouraged the idea that they represented concepts without sound. This made the system appear more mystical than linguistic. The key arrived from a place near the Mediterranean coast. In 1799, during the French military occupation of Egypt, soldiers working near the town of Rashid uncovered a broken dark stone. Europeans called the town Rosetta. The stone carried portions of the same decree in 3 scripts. At the top were hieroglyphs. Below them was Demotic. At the bottom was Greek. Greek could be read. The decree therefore offered a path into the Egyptian texts above it. But the solution was not immediate. The stone was incomplete. The scripts worked differently. Scholars disagreed about whether hieroglyphs represented objects, ideas, sounds, or some combination of them. Thomas Young demonstrated that signs inside a royal oval, now called a cartouche, could record sounds belonging to the name Ptolemy. This was a major step. If hieroglyphs could spell a foreign royal name phonetically, they could not be purely symbolic. Jean-François Champollion continued the work. He studied the Rosetta Stone, other inscriptions, and the Coptic language, recognizing that Coptic preserved the latest stage of ancient Egyptian speech. The forgotten language had not vanished completely. It survived in altered form within Egyptian Christianity. This connection allowed the ancient signs to recover sound. Champollion compared royal names. He examined repeated groups. He recognized that the writing system mixed phonetic signs, complete words, and signs indicating meaning. In 1822, he announced the breakthrough that transformed the study of ancient Egypt. The walls began speaking again. Kings who had existed only as mysterious figures acquired names and family relationships. Temple scenes revealed rituals. Tombs contained biographies. Letters exposed arguments. Medical papyri described injuries. Administrative records counted grain. Love poems recovered longing. The history of Egypt expanded beyond what Greek and Roman writers had chosen to preserve. Egyptians could once again speak through Egyptian texts. Decipherment did not remove every mystery. Many words remain uncertain. Texts can be damaged, obscure, metaphorical, or intentionally secretive. The ancient language changed across thousands of years. Reading a hieroglyphic inscription is not the same as hearing an ancient person speak. Pronunciation is partly reconstructed. Meaning depends upon context. Translations change as knowledge improves. But the central silence was broken. The signs were language. The bird might represent a bird, a sound, a word, or part of a larger group. The seated figure could identify a human action. The final sign could reveal whether a word referred to movement, divinity, violence, water, or thought. The system was complicated because human language is complicated. The Egyptians had never carved simple magical pictures. They had written everything from theology to tax records. The decipherment of hieroglyphs created one of history's strangest reunions. Ancient Egyptians had filled their tombs with names because they believed being remembered was essential to continued existence. Then their language was forgotten. The names remained visible, but could no longer be spoken. For more than 1,000 years, kings waited inside unreadable cartouches. Priests stood eternally before gods whose identities had become uncertain. Ordinary people sat upon funerary stelae beside offerings no visitor could name. Then strangers began reading. One by one, the names returned. Khufu, Hatshepsut, Akhenaten, Tutankhamun, Ramesses. Behind them came thousands who had never ruled: scribes, workers, mothers, soldiers, musicians, gardeners, priests, children, people who wrote letters to the dead. People who went on strike, people who loved cats, people who missed work, people who waited at doorways for someone they hoped would come. The Egyptians believed that speaking the name of the dead gave life. They could never have imagined the machines, museums, universities, cameras, and distant languages through which their names would eventually travel. But perhaps the result would have been familiar. The stone endured. The writing was read. The name was spoken. After thousands of years, the dead went forth by day once more. Ancient Egypt did not end in a single night. There was no final sunset witnessed by the last Egyptian. No door closed across the entire civilization. The river continued flowing. Children continued being born. Farmers entered fields beside temples whose rituals were slowly changing. Old gods acquired new names. New prayers entered old cities. Languages met, divided, and transformed. The people remained while the meaning of Egypt changed around them. The pyramids lost their smooth white surfaces. Tombs were robbed. Cities sank. Palaces vanished. The desert covered roads, workshops, homes, and human footprints. Some monuments survived because they were cared for. Others survived because they were abandoned. Some people were remembered because they built enormous structures. Others survived because they wrote a complaint upon a broken piece of pottery and threw it away. Tonight, we have traveled through only a small part of their world. We have entered chambers no sunlight reached. We have sailed beside dead kings. We have followed the sun beneath the earth. We have listened to workers refusing to build eternity while their families were hungry. We have watched a forgotten child king return from beneath the rubble. We have stood beside lovers, physicians, priests, thieves, queens, and gods. But the Egypt they knew can never be completely reconstructed. Its air is gone. Its voices are gone. Most of its people left no surviving name. History preserves fragments and asks imagination to walk quietly between them. Perhaps that is why ancient Egypt remains so powerful. It feels permanent, yet nearly everything within it was fragile. Mud brick dissolved, papyrus crumbled, gold was stolen, bodies decayed, languages disappeared. Even the gods could be forgotten. And still something remained. A line of writing, a cedar plank, a flower placed upon a coffin, a fingerprint pressed into wet clay, a name carved deeply enough to wait. Outside the tomb, the eastern sky begins to brighten. The Nile reflects the first light. A boat loosens from the shore. Reeds move softly in the morning wind. For a moment, the stone faces appear to wake. Then the desert becomes quiet again, and ancient Egypt returns to sleep. Thank you for spending this quiet journey with us. If you are still awake, let us know which place, mystery, or distant time you would like Quiet Science to explore next. And if these peaceful journeys help you rest, subscribing is a simple way to make sure another one is waiting when night returns. For now, allow the temples to fade into the distance. Let the river carry the final voices away and drift quietly into sleep. Good night.